Welcome to HP Fanfiction. Support me by subscribing the channel. Also, like and share the video to keep me motivated to make more videos like these. Molly sat beside her youngest son, trying desperately not to embarrass him by pulling Ron into the motherly hug she thought he needed. She'd certainly had reservations on hearing her boy was dating Lavender Brown. Thanks to the girl's father, the entire magical community now knew what had almost happened at the summer fair. The only reason that she hadn't written to Ron forbidding this relationship was because Molly knew it would have the opposite effect. She had no intention of pushing her son further into Lavender's arms. Her eyes were drawn to some other flashes of red hair in the stadium. Percy and Penny were sitting next to Bill. It was the blonde girl beside her oldest son, though that Molly's attention was zeroing in on. They were clearly on good terms, and the blonde witch also had her arm around a first-year Hufflepuff. Molly needed information and chose her source carefully. Ginny was clearly worried about Harry's involvement here today. There was more chance of her daughter letting something slip. "Ginny, do you know who that is sitting next to Bill?" "Oh, that's Jenny Abercrombie. Her son, Ewan, is a Potter scholar." Knowing that Pure Blood Ordercock was also a Potter scholar, and the stipulation Harry had placed on the scholarships, Molly then had another question for her daughter. "Isn't Ewan the Muggle-born scholar?" "Yes." The conclusion Molly reached from Ginny's answer shocked the mother to her core. "But that would make Ewan's mother a Muggle." "Yes." Ginny didn't even turn her head around as she answered her mother, seeing absolutely nothing wrong with the situation if Bill and Jenny dated. Molly certainly saw plenty wrong with that scenario. Her eldest son dating a Muggle who was old enough to have a son at Hogwarts. What else was this Muggle woman hiding? Where was the boy's father? She was just about to loudly spout her opinion when a hand clamped on her arm. "Molly, this is none of our business. Bill is a grown wizard, holding down one of the most important positions in Britain. He no longer needs or will tolerate his parents telling him what to do." "But Arthur." "No, Molly, I forbid it. Bill, myself, Percy and Penny all have jobs that can and do place us in the public eye. As matriarch of the Weasley family, what you say and do in public can now affect all of us." Arthur gave this a moment to sink in before continuing. "If you want to have a quiet word with him in private, that is certainly your right as his mother. If you go off on some rant, I think we both know how Bill will react. I also think you need a lot more information before jumping to any conclusions." She wasn't about to let that go unanswered. "How am I meant to get this information when I hardly ever see him? Even today. Why isn't he sitting with us?" Molly saw she'd scored a point there when Arthur squirmed. "There's a reason he's sitting over there today, and it's nothing to do with Jenny. It's work-related, Molly. And I can't tell you any more than that. I shouldn't even be telling you this much, so not a word." She wasn't happy with that partial answer, but Molly knew she would get no more. Sometimes she missed Arthur coming home and telling her about his day. Molly never thought she would be saying that about biting teacups and back-flushing toilets. There was just so much of Arthur's work that was now classed as secret. More and more she only discovered what her family were up to by reading about it in the Prophet, usually the front pages too. At least she had the consolation of knowing her children were all happy apart from Ron, and he would soon recover when another pretty young witch caught his eye. As Victor left the changing room to face his dragon, the silence was almost total. They were obviously not meant to hear how their competitors fared. A full stadium would certainly be heard in the changing room. "Harry, can I ask you something? What is these old dogs? I heard they are self-serving." This actually started Harry laughing. That was until he noticed Fleur was actually trembling. He got up and rammed his friend in a hug. "I'll make you a deal. After the task is over, I'll make sure Roger gets you one. Try a goblin ale too. It's delicious." The French champion could feel herself calming. Just from being held in Harry's strong arms, she could also feel something else. Harry wasn't affected in the slightest by her allure. It was quite the opposite. Her Veela side was practically singing that here was someone she should bond with. The quiet power practically radiated off Harry. Knowing of his committed relationship with his mate knocked that idea right on the head. He and Hermione only had eyes for each other. Both were her friends too. and Fleur didn't have that many good friends that she would want to throw two away by stupidly chasing something that could never be. She was still in his arms when they called for her. Harry gave Fleur a kiss on the cheek, along with some last-minute advice. Just do your best, Fleur. No one can ask more than that of you. The French champion squared her shoulders and walked out the door, Fleur's newfound determination visible with every step she took. Sapphire wore a wide grin as the first dragon was led into the rocky arena they had created. Seeing it was a nesting mother didn't even dent her smile. She put a comforting arm around Luna and pulled her clearly worried friend closer, trying to impart some of her confidence. Luna, Harry's a goblin. There's a reason why Gringotts has a dragon as our emblem. They are very important to us. So important we are all taught about these magnificent beasts from a young age. This event is tailor-made for Harry. He'll know exactly what to do. A lot of their friends were now drawing some of that same confidence from Sapphire's words. Hermione, Padma and Neville though appeared to be concentrating on something else. Their eyes were constantly searching the arena. They had hired a professional Quidditch commentator for today's task. The organizers didn't think it was fair to throw Lee in at the deep end, since there was no chance they were going to tell a student what the task entailed beforehand. The commentator might have had time to prepare by studying dragons, but Sapphire didn't think too much of his conclusions. While he was going into raptures about Victor temporarily blinding the dragon, the teenage goblin was rubbishing that approach. You have an opponent that is so much larger, stronger, fast as lightning, and can toast you on a whim. Why would you want to poke it in the eye and make it angry? That's just stupid. The words seemed to be proven correct as the dragon went crazy, blindly sending bursts of fire in all directions. Victor was now scrambling for his life, barely managing to dodge the last couple of bursts of deadly flame. The dragon was so angry, it had left its nest in search of the person who would dare attack it. Victor bravely made a dash for his target, collecting his egg and vaulting over the dragon's angrily swishing tail as he ran for the exit and safety. The dragon's tail, though, swung back and caught him totally unawares, throwing Victor 15 feet in the air before smacking into the wall. Thankfully, right next to the exit, he managed to claw himself to safety, much to the relief of the now cheering audience. That same audience was surprised to see Dumbledore and Umbridge award Victor 10 marks each. The other three judges posting a 9 and 2 8s. The Durmstrang champion hobbled back out to gratefully accept his 45 points, before being helped to a seat so Victor could watch Fleur's attempt. Sapphire was far more complimentary over Fleur's tactics. Those around the goblin realized they had an exter in their midst, and were listening to her, rather than a commentator who was just describing what they were already watching. He appeared to be more used to working for a radio audience. She's trying to charm the dragon to sleep, a far more natural approach. That commentator shouting with his voice, enhanced, and trying to whip up the crowd, certainly isn't helping Fleur's efforts. Again, Sapphire was proven right. Fleur managed to get her dragon asleep before carefully edging out the golden egg from under the snoozing giant. The idiotic commentator screaming she's done it at the top of his enhanced voice got the exact response he'd hoped for. The crowd went wild. This had the unfortunate result of waking the dragon, just in time for the Hebridean Black to spot a witch stealing one of her eggs. A sprinting Fleur made the exit with her robes now on fire. A sheepish commentator had the decency to look embarrassed as he asked Madame Maxine for her mark. She may be glaring at him, but that didn't stop Olympie giving her champion a 10, her reasoning being that Fleur would have earned a perfect score, but for his idiocy. Augusta, Umus, and Albus all awarded a very acceptable 9 for an admirable effort. Dolores, though, was disappointed the creature wasn't barbecued and gave Fleur an 8 for her attempt. Wearing different robes and having to endure some greasy burn salve, it was a greatly relieved Fleur that sat beside Victor to await Harry's attempt. She was also delighted to be tied with Victor, though both secretly believed Harry was the one they had to beat. Watching as the handlers struggled to get his dragon into the stadium had both of them glad they didn't draw number 3. The size of the Hungarian horntail even managed to silence the commentator for a moment. He wasn't alone in having that reaction. Sapphire, though, was unperturbed. Okay, the horntail is probably the worst choice Harry could have gotten. But it's still a dragon. Yes, it's big but also a lot smaller than that basilisk. This lot took down. Luna was clutching on to her goblin friend, repeating to herself that Sapphire knew what she was talking about. The other three who had fought the basilisk were now on full alert. If there was going to be an attack, it would be shortly. Harry entered the arena to silence. How could you cheer for someone who was about to face this beast? He had a quick look around before spying what he was looking for. A position where the dragon couldn't see what he was up to. Using his knife, Harry soon had 2 rocks transfigured into baby Hungarian horntails. The smile was back on Sapphire's face as she figured out what Harry was up to. All their friends were hanging on her every word, especially since it was clear the commentator didn't have a clue. Harry will use the dragon's natural instincts to his advantage. A mother will fiercely protect her eggs. That's nothing though to what she would do to protect the young after they hatch. Her maternal instincts are very high, because she is nesting, so she will certainly react to the babies. A nursing dragon will protect young that have hatched over eggs that have yet to do so. A worried Luna had a question. Won't she know those aren't her babies? It won't matter to the dragon, Luna. Her maternal instinct is so high at the moment she will simply adopt them. It's a good species survival trait, providing the babies are of the same species. As the pair of wailing cubs waddled into the open, all could clearly see the conflict in the horntail's behavior. It was studying the cubs while keeping glancing at the eggs she was sitting on. When Harry then conjured a panther, the horntail's decision was instantly made. The big cat, threatening the now terrified cubs, saw the female shoot off the nest and slaughter the intruder within seconds. The panther never stood unearthly against the Hungarian horntail. Harry used this time to disillusion himself, and was probably heading for the golden egg. The commentator felt he was on safer ground here. Absolutely brilliant strategy, executed to perfection from our youngest champion. He's going to face another problem though. Those eggs are spell resistant. The dragon is sure to notice an egg floating through the air. How in the name of Merlin did he do that? As the dragon used its wings to gently edge the 2 cubs back to its nest, the golden egg simply disappeared. The mystery was solved as Harry then reappeared at the exit. Oh, how clever was that? He simply wrapped the egg in his disillusioned cloak. The crowd was now going nuts. The champion most had come to see had just brilliantly outwitted a massive dragon without getting a scratch on him. Only those in the know realized just how clever Harry had been. By wrapping the egg in his robe, he didn't actually touch it. Portkeys only work with skin contact, and he just made sure there wasn't any between him and the egg. While the handlers were now having to subdue the dragon, they knew better than to approach one with cubs. Harry sauntered over to sit beside Fleur and Victor. There was no surprise when Amos and then Madame Maxime both awarded him 10s. Dumbledore received howls of derision when his wand emitted a 7. His excuse that Crow, being a goblin, had prior knowledge of dragons not available to the other 2 champions cut no ice. The howls of disbelief simply got louder. Dolores was next. She'd been agonizing whether she could get away with going as low as an 8. Albus's score inspired her. Since this was her last involvement with the tournament, Dolores decided to go out with a bang and poke Crow 1 in the eye at the same time. Her wand drew a 5 in the air. It seemed that Dumbledore was only the warm-up act. The real villain of the piece had just arrived. It took a moment for the even louder howls of derision to die down enough for Umbridge's explanation to be heard. All these people are here today to see a show. Not so a competitor could disappear. I awarded 5 points because I only saw him complete half the task. That was too much for Augusta. The youngest champion drew the worst dragon, yet completed the task in the quickest time and completely uninjured. To award 5 points is a disgrace. Then again, we really shouldn't expect much else from a witch who challenged the Centurion to a duel on his 12th birthday and lost. Augusta's wand then signaled a 13, to a massive cheer from the thousands in the stadium. The commentator, though, had some bad news. While I totally agree with your sentiments, Madam Longbottom, the rules state that the maximum points any judge can award is 10. That gives the Hogwarts champion a total of 42, and relegates him to last place. It seemed as if the very angry crowd might actually wreck the brand new stadium until the commentator asked Harry for his opinion. Silence fell as they awaited his answer, An unperturbed Harry just shrugged his shoulders before answering. I know I did my best. That is all that matters to me. The points are meaningless, especially with Madame Umbridge involved. The other two champions were just as angry as the rest of the crowd, Victor more so. He was honest enough to admit to himself his performance had been the poorest of the three, yet here he was jointly in the lead, with Harry last. His pride and honor had been taking a beating lately. It was time to change that. Casting the Saronis on, he really put the cat amongst the pigeons. If Harry lost points because he had knowledge of dragons, I should too. A puzzled commentator then asked the question that lit the touch paper. Have you worked with dragons before? No. Professor Dumbledore told me we would be facing dragons. The venom directed at Dumbledore came from every corner of the stadium. There were also a couple of rifles trained on him at this point too. No one knew how he would react to that accusation. Albus, though, only had eyes for a certain Durmstrang champion. Victor, however, was unrepentant. Harry was best. He should be winning. Remus had been able to relax and enjoy the tournament. Actually thankful Cedric wasn't involved. The instant he laid eyes on that Hungarian horntail. Now though his temper was as hot as any dragon flame, and he fired it straight at Albus Dumbledore. Not only do you tell your champion what the task would be, you then award him full marks, while docking Harry points for having knowledge of dragons. Your audacity and duplicity is only matched by your hypocrisy. I propose Albus Dumbledore is voted off the judging panel. While livid, Albus still, though he could get through this relatively unscathed. I would like to bring your attention to the ruling that says such a decision must have the unanimous backing of all the other judges. Augusta and Olympe quickly offered their backing. It was the third yes, though, that shocked Aldous. Dolores was silent, however. The yes had come from Tonks. Amos wore a rueful grin as he delivered the decision. Madame Umbridge's last involvement with this tournament was that ridiculous 5 she awarded. Aura Tonks then became the 5th member, 4th, now that you are no longer part of this. Augusta thought she had an acceptable solution to their other problem. Mr. Crumb, that was a very brave thing you just did. I want to win, madam. But will not win by cheating. I was going to propose we dock you 3 points, making you level with Centurion Crow and leaving Miss Delacour with a narrow lead. Harry shaking Victor's hand seemed to signify that decision was accepted. It also brought Olympe further on board with what they were trying to do. The Bulgarian champion wasn't quite finished yet though. He still had one more card left to play. Madam Longbottom, I would like to request a favor. Could I transfer to Hogwarts for my final year? I must still represent Durmstrang in tournament and promise I will do my best. Spending the rest of the year with Professor Dumbledore is not a nice idea. Knowing this would have serious political implications, Augusta looked to Cornelius for some help before answering. The Minister of Magic had been a mere spectator here today. That just changed. With the incident in Hogwarts last evening and now this, Cornelius was well aware he could have Dumbledore out of Britain by tomorrow. The problem with that outcome was they would lose their information pipeline to Voldemort and his 2 Death Eaters. Cornelius was going to have to swear his Bulgarian counterpart to secrecy before telling Borislaw just what they were up to. Otherwise Albus was out of here. Mr. Crumb, I shall be speaking with your Minister of Magic shortly. I will be sure to mention that your actions here today have been impeccable, and something all Bulgarians can be proud of. Unfortunately, the underhanded dealings of one of our fellow countrymen brought us to this point. That you wish to join Hogwarts to avoid contact with this individual is perfectly understandable, and has no negative implications for the proud educational establishment that is the Durmstrang Institute of Magic. The quality of that school can clearly be determined by the outstanding young wizard that is her champion. We would certainly welcome your stay in our country. A much relieved Victor felt a friendly hand clamp on his shoulder. Welcome to Hogwarts. The 2 champions shaking hands was the sign for the crowd to start applauding too. Both wizards took one of Fleur's arm as the 3 champions left their seats to great applause. The audience appreciating the after-task entertainment almost as much as watching the champions face off against the dragons. Fleur was walking as if on a cloud of air, a fellow champion on each arm and now unbelievably in the lead of the tournament. To complete a fabulous day, her family were in the audience watching her compete. It didn't get much better than this. Hermione was ahead of everyone as she raced to embrace Harry. Only when he was in her arms did she relax and whisper in his ear. Watching and waiting was torture. I want to be involved next time. Knocking Dumbledore out the judging panel should make that easier to do now. She then switched to English and congratulated Fleur and Victor. They were then interrupted by a little blonde missile homing in on her sister. The French flowed so rapidly that even Harry had trouble following what was being said. That the little girl had been crying and was still clearly upset didn't help matters any. Fleur barely had time to introduce Gabrielle to them before Madame Pomfrey grabbed both her and Victor for a final checkup before they could leave the stadium. Harry then pointed a couple who were clearly looking for their daughters in the direction of Madame Pomfrey's station before he and Hermione headed off to meet the rest of their friends. I already sent Betsy off to tell Mum you were all right. I expect Dad did the same with Dobby. Watching that was murder. Harry, we weren't really expecting him to make a move today. Hermione, the second or third tasks were always going to be the better options. I just can't understand Dumbledore's motives though. Harry had to break off as his arms were now full of witches and a female goblin. Padma, Luna and Sapphire got in first, with a queue waiting behind them. As Harry was now getting hugged by Hannah, Susan and Pansy, Padma offered her opinion on the Dumbledore situation. It's Bill Weasley from first year, all over again. Harry, if Victor hadn't spoken out today, Dumbledore would then have been able to blackmail him because he cheated in the first task. This had Harry shaking his head. Neville, sometimes I worry about her. She's the most devious person I know, yet the hat put our Padma in Ravenclaw. That either means she's scarily clever, or devious enough to fool the Sorting Hat. Why would I settle for just one? I'm deviously clever. And you also know I'm right about Dumbledore. He may have agreed with Padma about Dumbledore, but Harry's attention was taken up by a damsel in distress. He quickly headed for the crying girl. She was soon in his arms and clinging on for dear life. I'm sorry, Harry, she saw you having to face that dragon and has been crying non-stop since. She spent the entire task with her face buried in my robes, too frightened to watch. It was obviously a mistake to bring her, but she was desperate to see you. Hermione and Barchoke. He was trying to soothe the little girl. Hey Danielle, I'm fine. That big dragon never got anywhere near me. How would you like to come to a Halloween party now? You can even meet our baby brother Jamie. This got the little girl's attention. A party and meeting a baby. Danielle had been crying so hard, however, she was left unable to speak. She did manage to nod her head though, and Harry put her down between him and Hermione. Holding each of their hands, the cavalcade headed up to the castle. Harry then felt a little hand slip into his free one, turning his head to see Maggie Creevy now walking beside them. I was scared too, Harry, but Colin and Dennis kept telling me you'd be fine. They were right. You have two very good big brothers, Maggie. You can trust them to look after you. Mary McDonald then only half-jokingly asked Harry if he had another hand for her to hold. That last dragon was the scariest thing she'd ever seen, yet Harry had controlled it like some overgrown sheepdog. Natalie was rolling her eyes at her mum's antics as their entourage just kept growing. For the vast majority of the Muggleborn's parents, this was the first time they would get to see where their children disappeared to for over 9 months of the year. All were wearing wristbands that allowed them to see the castle, and not one of them was disappointed with Hogwarts. Emma and Henrika were waiting at the main door for Harry. Hermione and Padma were left holding the babies as both mothers wanted to wrap their arms around the Hogwarts champion and assure themselves he really was fine. Albus wasn't fine, he couldn't remember when he'd felt worse. This actually surpassed the day back, punched him before his godson sliced through the Elder Wand with his sword. All Albus's plans had been foiled once more by a student attending his own school. He still couldn't believe the way Victor had acted. That stupid bitch Umbridge had started it all. Albus knew he was courting trouble awarding Harry a 7. He was counting on Dolores giving an 8. That would have left all 3 champions tied for first, something Victor wouldn't have objected to. Then Albus could have slowly applied pressure on the boy to be his inside person in Crow's group. But no, Dolores had to try and humiliate Harry by handing out a derogatory 5, sparking Vicar's conscience and opening the entire can of worms. Albus felt someone sit behind him in the emptying stadium. A well-known voice then spoke to him. I warned you, Albus, but you didn't listen. Things are changing and you can't stop them. You know why you can't stop those changes? Because people want these changes to take place. Albus was not impressed with that comment. People will want whatever they're told to want. Severus cut him off at that. You still think telling the people what they want to hear is enough? That won't work anymore. Apart from the Dark Lord and his last 2 followers still being at large, the country has never had it so good. Parents have just been thoroughly entertained and are now getting to spend the rest of Halloween with their children inside the castle. That has never happened before. Did it look like they cared there were muggles and goblins in the audience? The old wizard had no answer for that. With the flags, bunting and a dozen or so of those little stalls where people could get food and drink, the entire day had taken on a festival atmosphere, that everyone appeared to be enjoying themselves and not caring who they were sitting next to, was one of the things that shocked Albus the most. The prefects and marauder trainers have organized tours of the castle for the visiting parents. There will be muggles and probably even goblins entering the Slytherin common room, yet not one member of my house came to me to complain. That's how much things have changed, Albus. No matter how much you wish to deny it. He then really looked at his former headmaster, and Severus came to a shocking revelation. Stripped of his political power and public adulation, the comparisons between Albus and the Dark Lord were striking. Both were undoubtedly still very powerful wizards, but they had also been marginalized by the changes sweeping through their society. One was now being aggressively hunted while the other was being ignored. This to Severus was as striking an example of those changes as muggles being shown around the Slytherin common room. Go back to Bulgaria, Albus. There is nothing for you here. You are now merely a spectator after foolishly putting your champion in that position. Had Marco achieved his objective last night, you would have lost a student too. Harry is a goblin and they treat such matters differently. The rape of a young girl not yet of age would have seen Harry put Marco to the sword. He saw the gleam in Dumbledore's eye and extinguished it at once. That doesn't make him a dark wizard, Albus, just a goblin. In some ways they are a quite simple people. Cross certain lines and you pay for it with your life. If Harry should discover you had anything to do with his parents' deaths, he will come for you. If I find out you had anything to do with Lily's murder, I will be at his side when he does. This seemed to shock Albus more than anything, but Severus was unrepentant. My aims have always been to protect her son and avenge Lily's murder. Those aims have not changed, though the world around me is. I owe neither you nor the Dark Lord allegiance now. I'm free to live my own life. I thought you were smarter than that, Severus. No one is really free. Yes, there are limits to freedom, but I quite happily accept those limits are necessary. There are clearly defined boundaries that can't be crossed. Unlike Marco, I have no wish or intention of doing so. Those boundaries are called laws, Albus. Make sure you don't cross any of them yourself. That immunity only covers your actions before you stepped off that ship. Don't give Madam Bones the excuse she's looking for to pump you full of truth serum. They would soon have all of your secrets out of you. With that, Severus left Albus sitting there alone by a few stragglers making their way out the stadium. Unknown to both, Barchoke had watched the entire conversation from on high. While not being able to decipher what was being said, it was still obvious this was not a friendly meeting. With inside knowledge of both Dumbledore and Riddle, it was perhaps time to bring Professor Snape more into their confidence. He would speak with his children about this before making a move. Hogwarts had again done them proud when she provided a room for the students and their guests to enjoy Halloween together. The room was only similar to the one used for the Merlin Ball in that it was tiered. This one, though, had 2 tiers. Gone was the fountain and dance floor. All the space was taken up by tables in order to fit as many people in as possible. Gone too was all the gold, gilt, replaced by a theme fit for Halloween. Harry wondered how much the room read his mind when creating this, as there were ideas clearly recognizable from the fair incorporated here too. Probably most striking was the use of giant skeletons instead of pillars to support the terraces. That these skeletons had a floating illuminated pumpkin where their hearts should be was a touch macabre, but they fitted perfectly to the entire theme of the room. He'd been thinking of what his usual practice for Halloween would be. Perhaps that's why the room appeared so heavily influenced by graveyards. Being Halloween, though, Hogwarts had adopted a spooky approach to the subject. much to the delight of the people in the room. Harry was sitting at a large table with his family, just enjoying the fact they were all together. They would sit down and go over what happened today at a later time, just as they had already arranged to visit his parents next Saturday during their time for lessons with Sirius. Tonight was to be enjoyed. Families all around them were doing the exact same. Pauline Delacour was certainly enjoying herself. The change in her eldest daughter would make it hard not to. Fleur had introduced them to so many students she called friends that Apolline's head was spinning. That every one of those friends had greeted the Delacours warmly was also unexpected. Gabrielle being introduced to some of the younger students was also a revelation. Her precious little Gabby was just accepted as an ordinary girl. Madame Maxine had smiled at Apolline's confusion and recommended she have a chat with Lady Black. Olympe realized she might be costing Beauxbatons a student, but as a dedicated educator, she wanted what was best for the child. Fleur's time at Beauxbaton had not been easy, and watching her bloom at Hogwarts was a revelation. Olympe would never tire of watching. Being chosen as the Beauxbatons champion had certainly helped. Olympe, though, thought this transformation was more to do with the friends she had now rather than her being champion. Bill could easily spot the tension that practically radiated off his mother. When Ewan, again being dragged away meet some of his friends' families, coincided with Penny and Jenny heading off to powder their noses. All the Weasleys at the table knew what was coming next. Molly had Ron at her side. Since there was food on the table, he wasn't complaining. Fred, George and Ginny were sitting with friends, leaving her 3 oldest boys and Arthur to witness Molly the interrogator. Like all who were accomplished at that skill, the questions started off friendly and innocuously. Molly, though, was dealing with family and none of them were fooled in the slightest. She seems like a lovely woman. Where did you two meet? Oh, we met at the fair and hit it off almost at once. We were both too busy, though, to do more than chat. When I heard the ambassador wanted someone to show them around a few houses, I quickly volunteered. It took a couple of days, but discovering the house they both liked was close to the McDonald's sealed the deal. I then spent time helping them move in. Shrinking and household charms can make a great difference to that process. Jenny then invited me for a meal to say thanks, and we've grown from there. And what has the boy's father to say about this? All recognized the flash of anger in Bill's eyes. None, though, thought it was directed at his mother. Yet, no idea, and it doesn't matter. Jenny has no memory of becoming pregnant, or who did it. The way Bill said that left no doubts in any of their minds what he meant. He wanted to be sure his youngest brother understood, though. Ron repeating that would hurt someone very dear to me. I trust I don't have to say any more. Hey, I like Ewan and Jenny's really nice. Does that make Harry his magical guardian? His brother's nod sealed it for Ron. I owe Harry big time, both for Quidditch and saving Lavender. I won't say a word. Even Ron mentioning Lavender couldn't deflect Molly from her target. Bill saying someone dear to him set off even more alarm bells. Isn't she a bit old for you? Jenny is 28, I trust you know what age I am. Mother? Ignoring the signs that Bill had reached the end of his patience, Molly pushed further and brought up what really troubled her. But she's a muggle. All recognized she had gone too far. They didn't need to see Bill's shoulders squaring or hear his voice hardening. I am aware of that, Mother. Unlike you, I don't let that term define who someone is. Where you see a muggle, I see a beautiful woman who hasn't let the hard life she's had to lead drag her down. Instead, she rose to the challenge and raised a wonderful son on her own. She's warm, loving, funny, and someone I'm proud to have in my life. He was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. Bill, if this between us is going to cause problems, then perhaps we are not the ones with the problem. Jenny. We can't live our lives based on what other people think. Miss Abercrombie? Arthur had decided he needed to take some action here. He then softened his voice to a much kinder tone. Jenny, you and Ewan are welcome at the Burrow any time. Oh, the Burrow is our home, and we certainly hope to see you there over Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Weasley. We honestly haven't planned that far ahead yet, but Ewan and I will certainly consider the idea. At that, Ewan arrived with his ever-present shadow, Natalie. Mum, the McDonalds are getting ready to leave. Are you going with them, or is Bill taking you home? Jenny now had an arm around each of the children. The McDonalds and Abercrombies having grown very close. I'm staying with Mary and Roy tonight. I stay there a couple of nights a week now. We'll all feel much better after seeing your school. And just how happy you are here. I'd better go and say good night to Harry and the gang." With that, Jenny faced the rest of the Weasleys. "It was nice to meet you all. Bill is always talking about his family and now I can put faces to the names. Good night, and thanks for the invitation." Bill rose and accompanied Jenny over to say cheerio to Harry, leaving the rest of the table drawing daggers at Molly. It was actually Percy who rounded on her first. "I'm ashamed of you, Mother, that was totally uncalled for. It leaves me wondering if you only like Penny because she's a pure blood. That certainly played no part in me asking her to marry me." Charlie was next to have a pop. "I've spent a lot of time with Bill over the last few days. I can honestly say I've never seen him happier or so content. I also think the reason for that was sitting beside him tonight. You know him better than any of us, Mum. How could you be so stupid as to do what you just did?" This also pushed Ron's thoughts in a direction he didn't like. "What would you have said if I'd brought Lavender home as my girlfriend?" "Well, thankfully that won't be happening now." In a manner eerily reminiscent of Bill, Ron faced up to his mother. Lavender made a mistake. Once she realized it, she fought that Bulgarian with everything she had. That gave Harry the time to get there, and Hermione made sure the creep won't be trying anything like that again. "I don't know where Lavender and me are at. I'm learning to fight my Weasley temper and talk about things, rather than just shouting the first thing that comes into my head." This earned him a pat on the back from a beaming Percy. "I'm proud of you, Ron. That's a very mature attitude to take. I'm on the Quidditch team now, thanks to Harry standing beside me and stopping it being cancelled this year. He tore out of here to save Lavender, despite having to throw her out of Kinkacy at the summer. Draco is now one of his best friends, and we all know how their first meeting went. I think what I'm trying to say is that people change, and Harry allows for that. If Lavender comes back, I'm going to talk with her and see what happens after that." Arthur had a firm grip of his wife's arm. Bill was more than able to deal with her ire, but Ron's burgeoning maturity wouldn't withstand such an attack. Since his youngest son maturing was certainly something Arthur wanted to encourage, Molly was not going to be allowed to verbally rip Ron's head off. He and his wife were already on a collision course over her behavior toward Bill. Adding Ron to the account would only extend the length of the argument. Since 4 of her children had all disagreed with her opinion, the ferocity of their forthcoming confrontation was never in doubt. Another mother was having a much more pleasant Halloween. Bella was sitting telling stories of former Halloweens her baby. These stories started innocently enough, describing Halloween parties from her early childhood. That those descriptions soon turned to darker times was disturbing to say the least. That Bella used the same childlike voice to describe bobbing for apples to Marvolo as she did for torturing someone to death was insane. None of the other 2 adults present even noticed. Augustus and Tom were working to solve a very specific problem. The trouble was that they didn't have all the information they needed. There were now plans to rectify that, though. Umbridge may be getting chucked out the castle, but her assurances she would still be able to supply them with information was being believed. More than that, however, here was someone who could now get them the books they needed to complete this project. Bella and Augustus would soon be paying her a nighttime visit. Another reason why Bella was in such a good mood. Dolores Umbridge certainly wouldn't be smiling after the visit. While those who had arrived in Hogwarts by portkey left by same means, the room was able to provide a bank of 12 flues, which enabled witches and wizards who were connected to the system a rapid method of returning home. Arthur had barely stepped from the burrow's fireplace when Molly started in on him. "I'm their mother. Is it wrong for me to want what's best for my children?" Knowing this was coming had allowed Arthur time to prepare his arguments, something he was getting rather good at since taking up his new ministerial post. "Molly, every parent wants nothing but the best for their children. When those children are young, it's also every parent's duty to decide what's best for them. As those children get older, however, the parents have to learn when it's the children's turn to make their own decisions. Only Bill can decide what's best for him. That right passed from us to him years ago." She tried to reason with her husband. Why was she the only one who could see this? "You know I have nothing against muggles, Arthur, but a wizard marrying one will seriously hurt their career. he will be looked down upon and sneered at behind his back. Bill has been doing so well too, we can't let him throw all those years of hard work away. Molly, who does Bill work for? Arthur had confused Molly by completely changing tact. She stopped and answered her husband. He works for Gringotts. Why? Arthur quickly cut her off. Yes, more specifically, he works for Ambassador Barchoke. His boss is the person who already counts Hermione Granger as his daughter, and her Muggle parents as close family. Ewan is a Potter scholar that makes him and his mother Jenny family too. Now, do you think Barchoke would see a relationship between our Bill and Jenny as a bad thing? Even in the ministry now, anyone displaying bigotry like that would be severely frowned upon, if not actually jumped upon from on high. Not to be dissuaded, Molly offered another reason to be against this match. She's older than our Bill and already has a child at Hogwarts. And what a delightful boy he is too. A credit to the mother who brought him up. She is also a beautiful woman who makes our son light up when she's next to him. Like Charlie, I've noticed the positive change in Bill. I just didn't know Jenny was responsible for that. She was left clutching at straws now. But Arthur, just because she had one magical child, doesn't mean her next one will be too. What if we have Muggle grandchildren? He was trying desperately not to lose his temper here. But Molly was making that harder and harder. We have 7 children, Molly. The odds were high that one of them might have been a squib. Would that have made any difference to you? This finally hit home to Molly. Her hand was over her mouth, and it took a minute before she could even answer. Arthur, how can you ask me that? They're my babies. I carried each of them for 9 months. I would have loved them no matter what. That question had knocked all the fight out of her. Molly was now in tears. Arthur pulled his crying wife into an embrace. I know you would have, love. Just as I know you will love any grandchildren the same way. If Bill's relationship with Jenny reaches that point and if their union is blessed with children, I know my Molly will be counting the days and knitting like mad to ensure that baby wants for nothing. Whether they are magical or not, he lovingly kissed the top of her head before continuing. I also know a little of Jenny's history. Her parents practically threw her out when they discovered she was pregnant. She will not be rejected by the Weasley family, rather welcomed as a friend who might one day be so much more. I hope you can support this, Molly, because I won't have it any other way. She was crying into his robes and nodded her acceptance. It took a moment before she remembered their other problem. What about Ron? Now that is a totally different case. We've both been worried about him. And let's not forget we actually came within a whisker of withdrawing Ron from Hogwarts. He's finally starting to mature and I don't want anything to interfere with that process. Lavender is a young witch who would appear to have developed physically without the rest of her faculties yet catching up. Yes, she's made a couple of incredibly stupid decisions, but thankfully there has been no permanent harm done. Neither have yet reached 15, and she's Ron's first girlfriend. I think we let Ron deal with it, only becoming involved if he comes to us for advice. He's far more likely to talk to Bill or the twins though. We know they won't steer him wrong. He could see Molly getting ready to offer objections, so Arthur played his ace. Ginny told me Ron was heartbroken. She said he wouldn't have been at the task today if the twins hadn't pulled him aside for a chat. Judging by what Ron said today, the twins must have approached Harry for information. That he's willing to sit down and discuss his problem with Lavender is a big step forward for Ron. We need to let him do this. The girl might not even make it back to Hogwarts, so let's not cross any bridges before we have to. Molly didn't answer, so Arthur took that as a good sign. You have a seat, love, and I'll make us some cocoa before we head off to bed. She had one last question though. Arthur, were any of our children in danger today? Here was one he could answer with some degree of certainty. If Voldemort and his 2 followers had turned up today, they wouldn't have gotten a spell off before they were no more. Just precautions. Love. Nothing more. Arthur escaped to make the cocoa. Breakfast was interrupted by Augusta standing to make an announcement. Since Mr. Krom asked to become a Hogwarts student yesterday, he and I had a discussion and we reached this decision. While Mr. Krom stayed in guest quarters last night, he himself was very keen to undergo the full Hogwarts experience for his last year of schooling. That means we have a sorting to do. As McGonagall came forward with the hat and stool, there was much good-natured ribbing for Victor as he walked toward her. He looked comical sitting on the stool designed for first years with the hat on his head. The joking slowly died down as the hall waited to see where he would be going. There was rather a long wait before the hat finally spoke. "Well, if you're sure, better be Hufflepuff." The Badgers went crazy as a high-profile student was sorted into their house. In an unprecedented move, the other 3 tables stood and applauded Victor as he joined his new housemates. Cedric made a place beside him, a place Victor gratefully accepted. Madame Longbottom too was applauding, however she had more to say. Now, while Mr. Crumb is a member of Hufflepuff House, he will still represent Drumstrang in the Tri-Wizard tournament and the Quidditch competition. That last comment drew some playful boos from the Gryffindor table, mainly because they were next to play Durmstrang. Without Victor playing, they would have been confident of victory. Now they had to do an island to score so many points that the Seeker's contribution couldn't win Durmstrang the match. Something that was easier said than done. The Bloody Baron inviting Severus to Madame Longbottom's office that evening intrigued the potions master. Discovering his godson and Pansy had been invited too really piqued his interest. On entering her office, "The gang's all here" was the first thing that went through Severus's mind. Longbottoms, Blacks, Grangers, Patils, Barchoke, Tonks, and Amelia Bones. Only Lupin was missing. But he had the first-year marauders at the moment. It was actually Barchoke who started things off. "You 4 have been invited here tonight for different reasons. Parvati, we know what Padma keeping secrets from you caused last time. We trust you won't talk to anyone not currently in this room about this matter. Draco and Pansy, I'm told you practically guessed what was going on. Insight like that we can certainly use. Potions Master Snape, you are here for the exact same reason. You have unique insights to the people that we hope to defeat. I can't emphasize enough though that secrecy is paramount. People's lives are literally at stake here." That Barchoke's eyes quickly shifted to Hermione and Harry, sitting holding their baby brother, was not lost on any of them. Augusta then took over. "We now know who originally entered Harry's name in that cup. It was Dolores Umbridge. She did so under Voldemort's orders. They have been using a dead drop when she visits Hogsmeade on a Saturday, receiving and sending information to Voldemort. Bellatrix Lestrange has been observed collecting the information. This news seems to take the breath from Parvati. It didn't take her long to recover though. You knew this, and still let Harry go out there to compete." Neville quickly talked her down from the funk she was rapidly approaching. Harry was covered at all eyes. 3 of our fathers were in the stadium roof with rifles. Nothing was getting near him. There were auras, warriors and members of the audience all ready to pounce. Instead of reassuring Parvati, this just agitated her more. "I thought we were safe behind these wards. Can he get through them?" It was then Padma's turn to try. "Padgy, he was after a sample of Harry's blood. We want this to end, so we gave him it." Once more this had the opposite effect. Looking at the 4 people involved, Parvati instantly reached what was an obvious conclusion. "None of you would chance Harry facing this alone. He's got all 4 of your blood, hasn't he? We've done all right so far by sticking together, sis. We weren't about to break that up." Parvati finally ran out of things to say. She just sat quietly with tears in her eyes, until her mother's arms gently snaked around her. Amelia now took the discussion forward. "Another complication, though, is that Dumbledore is somehow involved. He's been observed on a few occasions meeting with Umbridge in Hogsmeade. We just don't know what his angle is yet." Figuring he wasn't here to be part of the furniture, Severus added his 2 nuts worth. "Like most people, I suppose, I just assumed Albus had entered Harry's name. Umbridge probably counted on that too, forgetting one thing. He would know that wasn't true. I'm almost certain Albus would approach Umbridge, and now she's his spy. Anything that the Dark Lord sends to Umbridge, he will know about it. I'll bet he's also helping Umbridge decide what information gets passed through Bellatrix." With Victor now friends with Harry and himself sitting on the judging panel, Albus must have thought he controlled it all. This actually drew a chuckle from Harry. Victor standing up and calling him for cheating must have really upset the old man's plans. Amelia didn't think this was funny though. "It also blew a big hole in our plans too. Cornelius had to contact the Bulgarian Minister of Magic and inform him what was going on, otherwise Dumbledore would have been dragged back to Bulgaria to be sacked. Borislaw is not happy that one of his country's most prominent citizens is essentially being used as bait without that citizen's prior knowledge or compliance. Harry knows what he's letting himself in for. Neither Victor nor Fleur have any idea what could happen. If Voldemort appeared, they could easily find themselves in the middle of a battlefield. I don't think Voldemort will come anywhere near Hogwarts. This comment silenced everyone and drew all eyes onto Severus. For the Dark Lord to appear here would mean he had already accepted defeat and wanted to go down in a blaze of glory. The Dark Lord will never accept defeat and has no intention of going down, ever. That was why he created Horcruxes. He wants to be immortal. He's spent decades trying to achieve that status. He's not about to throw his life away on a futile grand gesture. That would support the information Gringotts says. Barchoke again glanced at his son and daughter before saying the next part. That's also why Harry wants to end this. The smart thing for Riddle to do would be to retreat to the continent and take a number of years building up another army of like-minded followers. We're hoping his pride won't let him do that. This is the weakest he's ever been, and our best chance to finish this once and for all. The nightmare would be for him to disappear, returning as an even greater threat when this lot all have small children of their own to care for. That scenario sent shivers down more than one spine. Severus, though, was confident that wouldn't happen. His pride won't let him retreat, not without a victory. He needs to dispose of the reason for his original downfall first. He needs to kill Harry. I've come to realize Dumbledore and the Dark Lord actually share quite a few personality traits. Neither will admit to their mistakes, and both are supremely confident of their own abilities, and that those abilities will allow them to achieve whatever task they set themselves. Both also want things in Britain to go back to the way they were before Crowhere took a hand. They want to rule the country and see only one obstacle standing in the way of them achieving that. It was Alice who asked Severus to clarify his last point. Do you think Dumbledore would actually kill Harry? No, not personally. Now, if you'd asked whether I thought he'd let someone else do it, you would have gotten a different answer. Like a shroud being lifted from his eyes, Sirius could see it all laid out before him. Dumbledore's playing all sides, pulling the strings to get the result he wants. Sets up the confrontation, and then rushes in to save the day. But too late to save Harry. It's Halloween 1981, all over again. This time, though, he's not getting away with it. That was a sentiment they all agreed with. Dumbledore is far too wily a character to put under any kind of sustained surveillance. He'll expect his every move inside the castle to be watched, and it will be. Harry nodded in agreement with his father, letting Barchoke know that was already being taken care of. Dolores Umbridge, however, is another matter entirely. She is the weak link in this entire conspiracy. It is only because we in Gringotts think she is too stupid to pull it off that we aren't recommending the Ministry arrest her, and then force Madame Umbridge to work for our side. Dumbledore would spot the difference the first time they met. Amelia agreed with Barchoke's assessment. It still left the Ministry hanging, though. What do we tell the Bulgarian minister? Is there anyone here who trusts Victor and Fleur enough to let them in on the secret? Since it was his life that was potentially on the line, Harry felt he needed to answer that. While I like them both, this is just too big to drop on anyone's shoulders. Everyone in this room has earned the right to be here. They haven't. I also don't see how you could include Fleur without bringing Madame Maxime on board too. If we are now saying that the most likely attack will come in the form of a blood-bonded portkey that should take the other two champions out of any danger. Tonks was basically thinking out loud, but the rest of the company appeared more than prepared to let her. If we then arranged the second task so each champion would have to fight their way through to reach volunteers, we would be drastically reducing the opportunity to introduce a portkey into the task. Smiling at her aura, Amelia nodded her agreement. I think that is something Cornelius could sell to Borislaw. Inviting him to the task might just swing the deal. We might even want to include him when we get down to discussing how we handle the third task. Just hold on a minute, are we suggesting allowing these four to take a strange portkey to God knows where? That is not something Dan and I are ready to put our names to. Emma? You are certainly not alone in that opinion. We need to come up with different methods of tracking them, methods that mean we can be right behind them with warriors and auras. They have trained for years to acquire the skills needed to survive. The 4 of them arriving will also be a surprise that should buy them a few seconds too. We have to be sure we can be mere seconds behind them portkeying out. Or I will vote no to this plan too. Barchok's view was instantly supported by the Longbottoms and Patils as well, leaving the 4 teens with no option but to accept it. Dan had another suggestion to throw in. Our government has ways of electronically tracking people. Could the ministry approach them for assistance? I'm sure they want to see an end to the Potter killers, almost as much as we do. That was something none of them had thought of. Amelia agreed to take that idea to Cornelius. Pretty sure Arthur would be approaching the Muggle government soon, with magical goblin and perhaps Muggle tracking locked onto them. Surely one of those methods would slip past whatever defenses Voldemort was setting up. They only needed one to work. Then this would be all over. Harry pulled Hermione to a quiet sofa in the Ravenclaw common room. They obviously needed to talk. It was now late and they would neither be disturbed or overheard. You were far too quiet in there tonight. Just what is going through that pretty little head of yours? I'm really frightened, Harry. He pulled her even closer and tried to offer some reassurance. We're all frightened, Hermione, we'd be fools not to be. No, Harry, it's not that. You want to know what really frightens me? Being left standing there while you are portkeyed to wherever Voldemort and his cronies are waiting for you. That's what will give me nightmares, Harry, not being with you when the time comes. Of course I'm frightened of facing them, but I am absolutely bloody terrified of not being there to have your back. You are mine, Harry, and I am yours, for the rest of our lives. There will never be anyone else for me. That means you can't leave me. Ever. Harry could feel his mate's tears dampening his shirt, but was at a loss of what to say to reassure her. Hermione, we're doing everything we can. She cut him off right away. No, we're not, Harry. Our mixture of blood on that towel is at best a gamble. It might not work as we hope. Suppose they have a means to separate it out. I can't lose you. Not when we have a foolproof method that would ensure at least I would be there too, available to us. This puzzled Harry before realization struck like a lightning bolt. Surely you don't mean… Yes, Harry, I do. I'm kicking myself for not thinking of it before Padma mentioned it. I've been thinking about it a lot since. Completing our bond would guarantee any blood bond portkey would accept me too. Harry's mouth was making shapes, but there was no sound coming out. The longer this went on, the more upset Hermione was becoming. Don't you want to bond with me? There was only one way for Harry to answer that. He lifted Hermione's chin and put all the love he had for her into their kiss. This certainly kissed goodbye to her doubts. I hope I'm on safe ground saying I dream of completing our bond. Quite a lot, actually. In my defense, I would like to say that my mate is the most beautiful girl in the world, and I love her with all my heart. How could I then deprive this girl of her dream, completing our bond on our wedding night? It was then Hermione's turn. She kissed Harry with all the tenderness she possessed. My real dream is having you beside me for the rest of my life. Going to university, forging careers, raising our children and watching our parents spoil them. That's my dream, Harry, one I'll fight anyone for. It all comes crashing down though if you're not there to share it with me. I need to be with you when you face him, Harry. Completing our bond will ensure that I am. Hermione? Completing our bond would automatically change your status in the nation. That means Father would know. If only you and I porty out, everyone inside the stadium, the entire bloody country, would know what we'd done. I don't think I could do that to you. This did not sit well with Miss Granger. You would rather chance leaving me standing there than risk embarrassing me. We're mates, Harry, with our wedding date already planned. We need to face him together to double our chances of us both making that date at the altar. I need to be there when you face him, and only you can ensure that I am. Realizing this was one argument with Hermione, he wasn't going to win, and a large part of his teenage psyche was also screaming for an immediate and unconditional surrender. Harry tried a different approach. Let's try and look at this logically, love. For the second task, we'll still prepare a welcome for him and try to eliminate the possibility of any portkeys. Getting you involved in the task too will certainly help keep me safe. With all those precautions in place, I don't think we need to complete our bond before the second task. Agreed? Somewhat reluctantly, Hermione nodded in agreement. She hated when Harry used logic against her, leaving Hermione no room to argue. Now wearing a smile, Harry continued. The third task is traditionally held nearer the end of summer term. That gives us until then to consider all our options. That's what your suggestion is, love. An option. An unbelievably mind-blowing, wonderful, beautiful, self-sacrificing option that will provide me with many pleasant dreams for months to come. The look of bliss Harry was now wearing would at any other time have had Hermione in fits of giggles. She was still waiting on her answer though. Harry understood and then got straight to the point. We'll wait until nearer the third task before making any final decision, but I'll make you a promise right now. For the rest of our lives you'll always be at my side and never left behind. The relief appearing on Hermione's face was instantaneous. That's all I ask, Harry. That's all I'll ever want. The two kissed and cuddled for some time after that, talking well into the night. Betsy woke them in the morning, having covered the sleeping couple with a blanket late last night. They awoke in each other's arms, happy and content. Both knew they had to move though. Padma discovering them like this would lead to endless teasing. Wearing wide smiles, both headed up to their rooms to prepare for their morning training. Arthur Weasley found himself having a strange morning, one to match the evening he'd just spent with Molly. He'd hardly arrived at his office when he had a visitor, Adam Brown. The man sat and rambled, leaving Arthur with no clue to the reason behind this unexpected visit. At one point Arthur felt his stomach clench in fear. Adam was mentioning his daughter and Ron, and children. While his youngest son was finally maturing, it would be a good few years yet before Ron was able to handle that step. If Ron had somehow gotten Lavender pregnant, Molly would flay him alive. It was finally with some relief that Arthur deciphered the real reason why this wizard was in his office. Mr. Brown, can I stop you there? You seem to be laboring under a misconception. While we Weasleys are an old, pure-blood family, there are certain traditions that we just don't hold with. Betrothal contracts are certainly one of those. Finding their wife or husband will be solely my children's responsibility. While he had known exactly what to do last night when Molly burst into tears, Arthur was completely lost on how to deal with a crying wizard. Even so, he had no intention of offering Adam Brown a hug and a kiss. Adam would just have to make do with a cup of tea and a biscuit. As the tea worked its magic, Adam even munched on a biscuit as he regained his composure. He tried to apologize. I'm sorry, Arthur. I just want to see my little girl settled, and she is sweet on your youngest boy. She's not a bad girl. Lavender doesn't have a bad bone in her body. She's just not wise to the ways of the real world. We both know the terrible world our children were born into. My wife and I have tried our best to shelter Lavender from that. Once he'd started unburdening his soul, Adam couldn't seem to stop. Lavender's head is full of fashion, shopping and boys, but not in the way that we know the world really is. She's spent years reading her mother's harmless romance novels. At least we thought they were harmless, until we discovered Lavender thinks that's how the world really is. Thinking back to Ginny with her Harry Potter book, and the damage that had done, Arthur could understand where Adam was coming from. The next part drew even eerier parallels between their daughters. Lavender then goes to Hogwarts and meets Harry Crow, a boy who is the walking embodiment of everything she believes to be true. Heroic, honorable, and unfortunately already taken. She becomes his friend, though, and her world changes. Shopping, parties, fabulous holidays. Her mum and I were really happy for her. That all changed at the summer. After that we were delighted to hear she had a boyfriend, one both my wife and I approved of. Now I don't know what to do. At last Arthur felt he could offer the clearly desperate wizard some advice. If you intend for Lavender to return to Hogwarts, I would suggest contacting the school and thanking Harry for saving your daughter. Twice. Hogwarts is a different school now. Your daughter won't have to suffer the kind of reaction to this that went on in our day. Adam then asked the question that was at the forefront of his mind. And what of her relationship with your Ron? The worried father had since discovered his attitude after the fair incident had left his daughter isolated in Hogwarts. She may not have been bullied, but loneliness could be just as bad for Lavender. Her relationship with this young wizard would be the deciding factor on whether Lavender actually wanted to return to Hogwarts. I won't lie, Adam. Ron was deeply hurt by this. He's decided, though, to wait and talk with Lavender before saying or doing anything more. His mother and I support his decision, and will also support the outcome. Should Lavender turn up at our house as Ron's girlfriend, she will be made most welcome. Arthur knew he was stretching the truth a bit with his last comment, but he would have until at least Christmas to work on Molly if that outcome actually happened. A relieved Adam was on his feet, hand outstretched to Arthur. That's more than I could have hoped for, more than we probably deserve. You're a good wizard, Arthur, and I would be a proud father if my daughter one day joined our two families. He may have been smiling, but inside Arthur was trying to come up with any excuse not to tell Molly about this conversation, and failing miserably. He could see them having another argument tonight. Dolores Umbridge was also having relationship problems. She was howling up a storm too. This had nothing to do with a wizard gazing on her bare breasts for the first time in many, many years. It was more about what his girlfriend was currently doing to those breasts. I know you would love to accept our master's mark, Dolores, but that wouldn't help us. Our master very graciously allowed me to mark you in a way these goblin wards won't detect. You are to be the first of many given this great honor, so hold still and let me work. The silencing charms on her bedroom were being sorely tested. It seemed an age before Bella stood back to admire her handiwork. Well, my big strong wizard, what do you think? I think my little Bella enjoyed that far too much. It is very effective though, and certainly won't trigger any wards. Dolores would really need to be getting to know someone a lot better before your work could be spotted. Dolores was too far gone for modesty to even enter her head. She lay there exhausted, drenched in sweat and blood, her bare breasts now sporting an L and a V on their underside, carved there by Bellatrix Lestrange's blade. If I ever get my hands on Crow's tramp, I'll carve mudblood across her chest and then kill her very slowly. As Bella's blade delicately carved letters in the air, she was happily imagining torturing Crow's mate. Augustus gave Dolores her instructions. He'd also brought a written set, anticipating Bella's ministrations producing this reaction in Dolores. Umbridge gave Augustus the impression of a witch who would enjoy inflicting pain onto others. Receiving it, though, was an entirely different matter. Only his Bella seemed to appreciate both equally, the giving and the receiving. As the two left, the bug hiding behind the curtain thought that would be a good thing to do too. Only knowing she had an emergency portkey had kept Rita there. Using it, though, would have meant blowing her surveillance and ending Dolores' usefulness to Voldemort. Peeking around the corner of the curtain, Rita could see she was in no danger of discovery. A troll could have entered that bedroom and Dolores wouldn't have noticed. The witch appeared almost comatose as she lay spread-eagled on her own bed. Rita still kept low, though, as she scuttled under the door to make her escape. She had a report to make to Barchoke. It was well known Harry only had one free period a week. He was somewhat surprised then to find himself being asked to visit Madame Longbottom's office during it. Knowing Augusta knew they had no secrets from each other, Harry didn't think she would mind if Hermione came along too. Their surprise jumped a few notches with spotting Adam Brown waiting there too. There was no surprise that McGonagall appeared ready to rearrange his facial features without using her wand. Augusta was doing her best to see things didn't get out of hand, though she clearly held similar thoughts to her deputy headmistress. Centurion, Mr. Brown asked to speak with you. After demanding to know why, I decided to give him this opportunity. Clearly reading the undercurrents here, Adam got right to the matter in hand. Centurion, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saving my daughter, and apologize for my behavior at the summer. Harry just stared coldly at the wizard before giving his answer. No. The three adult blank stares that answer produced meant Harry had to explain. He let Brown sweat it out for a minute or two first. I didn't know Lavender was in that cupboard, just that someone needed help. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. As to your apology, no, I don't accept it. Adam Brown then got to see up close just what a dangerous individual Centurion Crow really was. Your behavior over that matter hurt someone very close to us. That might still have been forgivable. That your actions then deliberately targeted this person, all in an attempt to protect your daughter, cannot. You, sir, tried to besmirch the name of a young witch who is family to me. Not a good idea. Pravati admitted that she had done wrong, accepted her not inconsiderable punishment, and has also learned from her mistake. Lavender clearly didn't, and hasn't. You must take some of the blame for that too. Harry then respectfully bowed to Augusta and Minerva, before offering Hermione his arm as they left the office. It was a shell-shocked Adam who stood there watching as he had just been dismissed by a student too. Augusta came out of her stupor and made after them. There was something else she wanted to discuss. Seeing Adam Brown's condition, Minerva then added her 2 nuts worth. Every few years, Hogwarts will get a witch who is an accident waiting to happen. Thankfully most see how the older witches behave, and grow out of it. Your Lavender fell squarely into the first category. She's yet to reach the second. You can't just keep depending on that young goblin to save her. Harry might not be here the next time. He normally spends the Halloween weekend outside the castle. What would have happened then? If Lavender is to return to Hogwarts, I'll need to see a whole different attitude from her. Minerva would also place Romilda Vane in that first category. Thankfully, Lavender's behavior had Miss Vane shooting straight into category 2. At least some good had come of this. They had barely reached the bottom of the stairs when Hermione pounced on her mate. After a passionate kiss, a smug Harry thought she agreed with him. Oh, it wasn't that, Harry. When you let your inner goblin out to play, it does funny things to my insides. They were about to begin kissing again when a throat being theatrically cleared behind them gave warning they weren't alone. Augusta was standing on the spiral moving staircase that delivered her to the corridor. I wanted a word with you two about a different matter. A Yule Ball. Harry was about to immediately object when Augusta held her hand up. I hope to spend Christmas Day with our families, maybe even in Kinkisi. I just want you to listen to my proposal first. The express leaves on the 19th, and I know you both intend to be on it. How would you feel about returning here on Christmas Eve for a Yule Ball? It would start at 8 and finish at 12, allowing everyone to porty or flow back home for Christmas. She could see Harry wasn't convinced, so then dangled her carrot. I understand you wanting to spend your holiday at Kingosi, but I'm hoping a few hours isn't too much to ask. I also know when striking a bargain with a goblin, it's customary to offer something in return. You do this for the tournament, then I will guarantee the second task will be held on the 29th of January. An excited Hermione squeezed him tight while trying not to squeal with joy. Say yes, Harry, please. Keitho was staring straight at Augusta. You clearly know the significance of that date. Do you also know the year? Since I consider this person a very dear friend, of course I do. Augusta was using all her experience not to smirk at him. It was just too funny watching Harry struggle though. Desperately wanting to say yes but at the same time not lose face. Hermione had no such qualms and was practically jumping up and down beside him. You drive a hard bargain, Madam Longbottom. How could I not accept? They were all wearing wide smiles now, as everyone got what they wanted. I shall need to check with my fellow judges that this date is acceptable, but don't foresee any problems, do you? With Tonks and Cedric's father there, none at all. Even Madame Maxime got a ball out of this, at no cost to Beauxbaton whatsoever. None of them could see any problems with this. The date of the second task will need to be kept secret until nearer the time me announcing the ball, though we'll also signal that date has been confirmed. The respect Harry had for the grand old witch was oozing out of every pore as he bowed deeply to her. Madam Longbottom, a goblin would be proud to strike a bargain like that. A very happy Augusta took the stairs back up to her office, hoping Minerva hadn't spilled Brown's blood on her carpet. An ecstatic Hermione was holding on to Harry and jumping up and down in a way that felt wonderful to him. Oh, Harry, we're going to get to see Father on his birthday, his 60th birthday too. I've never been able to celebrate it with him before. He always says it's not a good enough reason for us to leave Hogwarts. This year he'll be coming to us. We need to throw a party. A kiss from Harry silenced her. That was to say thanks, Hermione, for being so understanding. You've accepted me as I am, and love Father for who he is too. I remember a boy on a train trying desperately to work out whether I was pranking him after saying my parents were healers who worked on people's teeth. You accepted me as I am, and my entire family too. Just one of the many things I love about you. They headed back to the hall to collect Padma and Neville. It was nearly time to head for defense. They may have just lost their only free period, but neither was complaining. Lavender's return that Friday morning was news only until Madame Longbottom stood and made her announcement. A Christmas Eve ball was far more interesting than a student's return, especially at the Ravenclaw table. All eyes might have been on Harry, but it was Padman who beat everyone to the question. Roger was too busy congratulating himself for already having asked Fleur to be his date for any ball. So the mystery of why you and Hermione have been walking around with smiles on your faces is finally solved. You were dead set against this ball. What changed? Let's just say we were made an offer we couldn't refuse. Your Gran is some negotiator, Neville. And you're not going to tell us anything about these negotiations? Well, there will be a Yule Ball held on Christmas Eve. Padma playfully cuffing the back of Harry's head for simply parroting what Neville's Gran had just announced. This saw Hermione jokingly getting ready to defend her mate from attack as the table laughed along with them. Feeling a hand on his shoulder, Harry turned his head to see Victor standing there. Can I have a word with you, Harry? Standing, both walked to the main doors. Harry could see this was something Victor didn't want to say in public. After hearing what he had to ask, Harry couldn't blame him. Harry, I would like your permission to escort Sapphire to the Yule Ball. I would like your permission to escort Sapphire to the Yule Ball. Victor thought he'd made a terrible mistake, a mistake that could be his last. A pair of cold green eyes were suddenly focused on him with a frightening intensity. This was not his friend Harry facing him. Here was Centurion Crow, someone Victor just decided he never wanted as an enemy. There was also no disguising the threat in Harry's reply. I'm going to need to hear your reasons for asking Sapphire, Victor, and I'd better like them. Taking a deep breath, Victor proceeded to do just that. All over Europe, Durmstrang has a dark reputation. Grindelwald is a former student. Our current headmaster is a Death Eater. And now we find Dumbledore is, how you say, exposing himself as not light. I am a proud Bulgarian, but ashamed of how we are seen. I asked the hat to put me in Hufflepuff. I want to show that all of us from Durmstrang is not like that. Sapphire going to the ball with me would do the same, and she is nice company, I think. Your friend, Daphne, told me we go to these balls to dance all night and have fun. That is my intentions. I am not Marco, Harry. Your friend would be treated with the respect and honor she deserves. It was now Harry's turn to let out the breath he hadn't even realized he'd been holding. It also took him a moment to regain his focus and notice a very worried Victor still waiting on an answer. Sorry about that, Victor. I am rather protective of Sapphire, especially when she is in the magical community. I know you're nothing like Marco, and don't forget Durmstrang is not alone in having infamous former students. At least Durmstrang expelled your wannabe Dark Lord. The so-called Lord Voldemort is a Hogwarts former head boy. He even won a special award from the school. I'll need to contact Sapphire and see what she thinks of this. I would advise keeping this matter a secret though. Let them all wait until the ball before discovering who your date is. A much relieved Victor quickly agreed with that. The warning bell sounding for classes saw Cedric looking for Victor and of course a trio of friends searching for Harry. Later though was all he would say on the matter as they headed off to Ancient Runes. It wasn't until much later that day they discovered what had transpired as Harry held them back when Master Pitsley's potions class ended. Master Pitsley, I have an urgent message. I would like you to pass on to my father. It has been announced there will be a Triwizard Ball in Hogwarts on the 24th of December. This morning I was approached by the Durmstrang champion Victor Crumb, seeking my permission to ask Sapphire to this ball as his date for the evening. This not only surprised the Goblin Potions Master, Hermione, Padma and Neville were all pretty stunned by that news too. Master Pitsley was left shaking his head, trying to clear it rather than indicating a no. This may be a step too far for her father. It may be a step too far for the nation too. Victor's intentions are entirely honorable. Otherwise I wouldn't even have considered this request. He is a Quidditch star in his country and admired by many. Victor walking into that ball with Sapphire on his arm sends out a very powerful message. Sapphire will arrive in Hogwarts with the four of us and leave with us too. There won't be a single minute of the entire evening where she will not be under my care. I would take my blades to anyone who behaved inappropriately toward her. Hermione's hand slid into his. We all know that, Harry. What we don't know are Victor's intentions toward Sapphire. What is he expecting of her? And how do you think she will respond to this? Victor is hoping for a night of dancing and fun, with someone he's hoping will become a friend, nothing more. Sapphire is a goblin. She will be expecting nothing else. Until the day she meets her mate. She already told you this. Goblins don't date in a way that you three would recognize. They just socialize with a wide group of friends until they meet their mate. Sapphire just has a wider group of friends than most young goblins. It was Padma who brought another point up for consideration. Harry, Victor escorting Sapphire to what is a prestigious event won't just be big news in Britain, it will go international. Remember how the witches reacted to Hermione being alongside you all the time? The reactions to this could be a lot worse, and would all be aimed at Sapphire. It will be kept quiet before the event. Do you think anyone in the castle will say anything on the night of the ball? When the story hits the press, Sapphire will be staying in Kingosi with us until we need to return to Hogwarts. The only way to get at her would be by post, and our wards will redirect anything sinister straight to Gringotts. The sender might just get a surprise. We'll be there to deal with any hate mail. There's sure to be a fireplace nearby to put it into. When the political side gets sorted, it will then be Sapphire's decision whether she wants to attend as Victor's date. This drew a chuckle from Hermione. She already has his autograph, Harry. I don't think Sapphire will be saying no. The quiet man of the quartet then spoke his mind. Master Pitsley, Sapphire is not just our friend. There will be many more in the castle who consider her their friend too. She will be surrounded by friends the entire evening and perfectly safe. If for whatever reason she can't accept Victor's offer, I have a spare arm she would be welcome to. Harry needs to sit at the top table, but we would be honored if she chose to spend the evening with Padma and me. This received a deep bow from Master Pitsley. Well spoken, friend Longbottom. Young Sapphire is indeed fortunate to have friends such as you four. I fear, though your mate is right, such an occurrence would become international news. We'll have to involve the director in this decision, before going anywhere near Sapphire with it. Knowing she is still welcome to attend the ball means that a no is not the end of the matter for her. The four then went for dinner, and it was left to Hermione to bring another subject up. How did you react when Victor asked you that? Not well. I had to fight my inner goblin not to draw my blade there and then. Only hearing what Victor intended allowed me to calm down. I think I may have given Victor a fright. If he's taking our friend to the ball, that's maybe not a bad thing. Padma's smirk told Harry there was more to come. At least you missed Colin asking Luna to be his date for the ball. He dashed over the minute you left with Victor. He'd been caught out already today, so Harry wasn't rising to that bait. Is there any of you who think I need to have a quiet word with Colin? The four walked into the great hall, all with smiles on their faces. It was at their run the following morning before Fleur got a chance to speak with Harry. I want to thank you for saying yes to Zia's ball. Harry, our Christmas would have been dull without it. This puzzled the four Hogwarts students exercising until Fleur explained further. We knew when we volunteered for this, we would be spending Christmas in Scotland. Without the ball zoo, we would have nothing to look forward to. Harry had actually stopped running to stare at the French champion. You're not going home for the holidays? I thought Christmas was all about family. He looked toward Hermione for help with this. This will only be the fourth year Harry has celebrated Christmas. It's not part of a goblin's calendar. He doesn't go in for the religious side of the holiday, but just loves the idea that entire families get together to celebrate. That certainly appeals to his inner goblin. Nothing is more important to them than family. This was something that certainly resonated with a certain Bulgarian. As I am now Hogwarts student, I could possibly go home. That would not be fair to other Durmstrang people. So Cedric invited me to his house for holidays. It was like a light going on behind Harry's eyes as he turned to Fleur. You could spend Christmas with us. In Kimmersee. Harry, no. If you are going to do this, then Fleur needs to know. He just smiled at his mate, leaving Hermione to do the explaining and asking, "I know him very well, Fleur, and can see what he's up to. We have a rather peculiar family," that had Padma laughing. "Peculiar doesn't even begin to describe it, Hermione. We Patils are Indian, the Grangers are Muggles, and then we have Crow's goblin father and friends. Throw in a werewolf and a couple of Swedish Vila for good measure and you have quite the mixture." "Thank you, Padma. Now Fleur, how would your parents react to a mixture like that?" She'd been confused before, but now Fleur was totally flummoxed. "My parents are very, how you say, open-minded. Zeri would not object to me being in that company." "That's not what I asked, Fleur. How would they adapt to being in that company? I know my Harry. He's intending asking them to visit Kinekasi too. You just can't go dropping our family on strangers, however. Just because it's normal to us, others might think different." She was now focused solely on Harry. Fleur struggled to find any words. You would do that? I'm supposed to be an inscrutable goblin, yet Hermione reads me like an open book. She's also right, our family is rather a strange lot. Why don't you write home and invite your family on my behalf, mentioning how weird we all are. If they still want to chance it, we can then sit down and work out the details. She simply couldn't help it. Fleur just launched herself at Harry and hugged him for all she was worth. Before regaining her senses, she jumped back and started apologizing. "Oh Hermione, I am so sorry. He just made me so happy. That did not sound right." She was stopped from saying any more by Hermione and Padma bursting into laughter. "It's fine, Fleur. My Harry has a habit of doing things that sees girls just wanting to hug him in thanks. That's how we got together in the first place."
"Yes.
Hermione got me addicted to her hugs. Now I can't do without them." He's not joking. They even spend their nights on a Ravenclaw sofa, hugging until the morning. "Padma Patil, how do you know about that?" "Oh, Pav and I had sat up late chatting. I popped my head into your room to see if you were asleep, and you weren't there. I came down the stairs just as Betsy was putting a blanket on you two. You looked so sweet together." "And why wait until now to mention it?" "Hermione, I was saving it until it would be funny." "Well, I don't think it's funny." She was forced to smile though as both Neville and Harry were chuckling away. "It's his fault. I'm just so comfortable in Harry's arms. I never want to leave." "How many times now is that you've spent the night together?" "Now Padma, your jealousy is showing. Are we counting that time I was 12 and our fathers put a blanket over us?" They had started running again, as the two best friends continued their teasing. Harry and Neville learning long ago not get involved as these two tried to get one over on the other. It always ended with them both in fits of laughter, the one who succumbed first being adjudged the loser. As the teasing got more outlandish, Fleur's jaw was hanging open and even Victor appeared perplexed. "Padma did say our family is nuts, didn't she?" "Neville, I think your family is fantastic. I shall be writing home as soon as we finish here." This certainly drew a smile from Harry. "We will be trying to spend Christmas Day and New Year together. There will also be a wedding at Kingersea over the holidays. The Diggories will be invited, and that invitation will include any guests they have staying too." Her Christmas had just shifted from dull to spectacular. Fleur though was curious about how this came about. "If Madame Longbottom did not tell you about us not going home, how did she get you to agree to the ball?" "Oh, good luck with that one, Fleur. He hasn't even told Padma or I how Gran managed it." Hermione buckling with laughter was immediately followed by Padma doing the same. They literally were holding each other up while they laughed. Both Harry and Neville just split either side of the laughing obstruction on the track and continued running. Harry offered his reassurance to the other two champions. "Don't worry, they'll catch up. This is just their way of letting off some steam. I don't think those two could be angry with each other if they tried." That found agreement from Neville. "Padma's now like a triplet. She has two sisters." It was another sister who was being discussed inside Gringotts. "I'm very worried about this. It is one thing for my daughter to attend these functions as the Centurion's guest. Quite another to be on the arm of a famous wizard, who's also an international sports star. My guarantee still stands, Goldskin. My son would gut anyone who attempted to harm your daughter, be they wizard or goblin." The director then said his piece. "Your Sapphire will attend with my blessing and my public support." As well as Centurion Crow, there will be another 3 friends of the nation in attendance too, all of whom are very fond of your daughter. With the Centurion taking responsibility for her safety and the nation publicly supporting Sapphire, I think we can all agree no harm will befall her. Barchoke could just imagine this story whizzing around the magical world. A goblin on the arm of Victor Krumm in little backward Britain would shock many and surprise most. It certainly surprised him. I realize the position this puts you in as a father, Goldskin, but please believe me when I say Sapphire has many friends at Hogwarts. She will dance and have fun, returning to King Gussie along with my son and daughter. With the director pushing for this too, Goldskin was helpless to resist. He did have one condition though, one he would not be shifted from. If I agree to this, the final decision must still lie with Sapphire. Absolutely. Please tell her also friend Longbottom has offered that Sapphire can accompany him and his mate to the ball. Centurion Crow has some official duties as champion that prevents him making the same offer. I wouldn't want her thinking this Bulgarian was her only option for attending the ball. The decision will then be hers to make. With that assurance from the director, Sapphire was escorted into the director's office. Both father and daughter had been summoned, but Sapphire had been asked to wait outside. Goldskin watched as his daughter confidently walked into Ragnarok's office, her face lighting up when she spotted Barchoke's presence. Any other teenager would have been terrified in this situation. It just showed the confident female his daughter was becoming. He laid the current situation out for his daughter. Sapphire, your friend Harry was approached by someone who wanted to invite you to a ball in Hogwarts over the December holidays. It was the Bulgarian Quidditch player. Victor. Oh dear. She then turned slightly apprehensively, but still excitedly to Barchoke. I hope Harry didn't frighten him too much. Harry's very protective of me, all my magical friends are. What made Harry change his mind? Did Colin ask Luna to the ball? She would be hoping he would. Sapphire. She returned her attention to her father and demurely bowed her head. Sapphire, though, had noticed her outburst, had caused wide grins from Barchoke and the director. Sorry, father, it's just a lot to take in. I will of course abide by your decision on this matter. I'm assuming Victor is trying to make a statement by asking me, since I've barely spoken to him. Yes, and the Centurion has guaranteed your safety. Sapphire tried not to roll her eyes at that statement from her father. Like most teenagers though, she didn't quite manage it. And it widened the grins of other 2 goblins watching this discussion between father and daughter. You can refuse and still attend the ball, with friend Longbottom and his mate. We have all agreed the final decision will be yours. There was no need even to think about it as far as Sapphire was concerned. Being seen and photographed in Harry's company is helping the nation become more accepted in Britain. I think me doing this could only help that effort. Harry might be leading the fight, but I'm more than willing to play any part I can. This drew a deep chuckle from Ragnarok. Well said, young Sapphire. You are a credit to your family and friends. I fully support your decision, and the jewelry you wear to this ball will publicly say so. Sapphire found herself kneeling alongside her father, facing the director, both overwhelmed at the honor they were being shown here. She couldn't leave it at that though. I am honored, director, with respect though. I would still like to wear my necklace Harry and Hermione gave me. I never take it off. While her father stiffened at his daughter's perceived cheek, Ragnarok chuckled heartily. Nor should you. The protections on that sapphire are second only to those on Miss Granger's bracelet, and then only because there was less material to work with. The director's words had Sapphire's hand reaching to her favorite thing in the world. She should have guessed Harry would have done something like that. Her father, though, appeared totally gobsmacked at that news, already having thought the gift was too much before he knew it was enchanted. He would also be shocked to discover his reactions were exactly the same as a Muggle father, placed in the same position a few years earlier. I told you, Goldskin. My son looks after his friends, and your Sapphire is his oldest friend. As to your questions, Sapphire, all I know is that Augustus somehow convinced him, and that Colin is probably the only person Harry would approve of to ask Luna to the ball. Sapphire was leaving the director's office, chuckling to herself at the truth behind Barchoke's words. She would need to write to Luna and find that news out for herself. Her father was at her side, proud at how well she'd handled herself, but dumbfounded at where this confidence was coming from. He had of course noticed his daughter was growing up. Like fathers the world over, he'd just never realized how much she'd grown. Both were stopped by Barchoke reaching a snap decision. "Goldskin, I would like to offer your daughter an apprenticeship, working with my department. She already knows more about the world outside Gringotts than most goblins, and seems keen to learn more. She could start immediately, as we would need to tailor her education to her new position. That would also make this ball an official function, meaning any expense would be picked up by my department." Barchoke was always intending to pay for anything Sapphire needed, but this way it gave her family honor too. The ambassador was basically just thinking out loud, yet the more he said, the more Barchoke liked what he was saying. "When my son completes his education, he will work at my side before eventually becoming the nation's ambassador. At that time he will need someone at his side that he trusts implicitly to be his assistant ambassador. Your daughter could one day be that person." Ragnarok got very excited at that idea. "This is not just a tremendous opportunity for your daughter, it's a marvelous opportunity for the nation too. Young Sapphire here has done exactly the same as the Centurion and the three friends, openly embraced all three cultures that touch our lives. I can't think of anyone more suited to this role, and not just because she has the Centurion's complete trust. Understand though, Barchoke here is a hard taskmaster. He's giving you a glimpse of what your future could hold. You will then have to do all the years of hard work necessary to achieve that future." Goldskin looked at his daughter and saw her eyes sparkling to match that sapphire around her neck she was so fond of. The director was right. This was a tremendous opportunity for his daughter and her family. If things worked out as Barchoke suggested, Sapphire could eventually be one of the highest-ranking females in the nation. His decision, though, was the same as earlier. "While I acknowledge the great honor and tremendous opportunity this offer bestows on my family, the final decision must be my daughter's to make. Sapphire, after all, would be the one then facing years of hard work." All three goblins knew what her answer was going to be. Sapphire, though, still managed to surprise them. She shot back and hugged Barchoke for all she was worth. Having grown accustomed to this greeting from his daughter, the goblin knew exactly how to respond. "Thank you for this, Sapphire. All I'm giving you is a chance. Anything else you will earn yourself. None of us were joking about the years of hard work part." She stood back and, with a very wide grin on her face, bowed deeply. "Ambassador Barchoke, I would be honored to accept this opportunity." "Good. Now this news does not reach Hogwarts until after the ball. My son's reasons for changing his mind are mystifying. I suspect he and Madame Longbottom are up to something. Your first task will be to see if you can find out what that is." Barchoke's wink informed Sapphire he wasn't seriously worried about this, just curious as to what Harry was up to. She would still do her best to find out the reason behind it. A seriously happy Sapphire almost skipped away, her bewildered father following on behind. His daughter was now apprenticed to Ambassador Barchoke's department, and attending a prestigious wizarding ball on the arm of an international Quidditch player. How it had happened was still a shock to him. As they left, Ragnar couldn't help but say what was on his mind to his friend. Goldskin must be wondering what would have happened had he not dragged Sapphire away from Britain. Barchoke couldn't quite mask the bitterness he still felt over the matter. "Let the bastard wonder, his actions broke my young son's heart. I couldn't be happier with Harry's choice of mate, and truly love my wonderful daughter. I see no reason though to let how Goldskin acted affect Sapphire. My entire family is very fond of her. I have to admit to being surprised at how well your daughter accepted Sapphire. Hermione just sees Sapphire as Harry's oldest friend. My children are true mates in every way. We understand that relationship to be. Both are more goblin than we thought possible." Dumbledore was left bemoaning the quality of people he was reduced to working with. Dolores Umbridge was an emotional wreck. Her current state threatened all his plans. But he had no one else. He tried to appease her. "As leader of the Doomstang contingent, I will still be informed when the next task is, as well as what it entails. I just won't have any input into what those tasks will be, or any influence in choosing the dates. You will still have your information to send to Tom." Rather than showing relief, this just sent cold shivers down the witch. I have a list of books to acquire, and no idea how to go about tracking down some of these titles. My job at the ministry won't last long if it gets out. I've been strolling down Nocturne Alley. I don't know how long I can do this. Albus, that Lestrange bitch is the craziest person I have ever met. With either a wand or a knife in her hand, she terrifies me. I'm wondering if perhaps I would be better off going to Bones. They could set something up to catch those two and then protect me from Voldemort. Knowing that Dolores would be forced to reveal his part in all this, Albus had to prevent that disaster at all costs. Bellatrix is deadly but not as crazy as everyone believes. It's mostly an act to terrify her opponents. A very convincing act, I have to say. They won't dare harm you as long as you are still useful to them. As for the ministry, they would certainly keep you safe. Voldemort wouldn't be able to get to you in Azkaban. Having crushed her moment of rebellion, it was time to build Dolores back up again. I know someone who can help with getting what Voldemort wants. He was even sitting at the bar when I came up here. Albus had indeed spotted Fletcher leaning on what passed for a bar in the Hog's Head. Albus was currently talking with Dolores in a private room upstairs. For a few pieces of gold, Mundagus would soon track down what they needed. Her fears somewhat sated, Dolores handed over the list and gold she'd lifted to purchase the items. Albus would arrange with Dung to get the stuff as quickly as possible, giving him time to study the materials before handing them over to Dolores. She didn't know when her visitors would return. That was probably deliberate to keep Dolores on her toes. Even if they returned before Albus handed everything over, it couldn't be helped. It was imperative he figured out exactly what Tom was up to. What was a little torture of Dolores when compared to that? None of the conspirators knew the goblins already had teams working at doing exactly that, determining just what Voldemort's scheme was, having obtained the necessary information from Rita. Rita herself was keeping a low profile at the moment, staying well away from Dumbledore too. When Dolores had headed for Hogsmeade, Rita wasn't tempted to try and hear any conversations. Just seeing Dumbledore enter the same building was all the confirmation she needed. Luna needed some confirmation, and knew just where to go to get it. She plonked herself down beside Harry for lunch, asking her question right away before the other Potter scholars arrived. "Harry, I received a letter this morning from Sapphire. Sapphire says she's going to the Yule Ball, as Victor Crumb's date." "Yeah, we're trying to keep that quiet at the moment, Luna." "No problem, Harry. I guess the mystery of why you agreed to ball has now been solved." "Not even close, Luna. Victor thought that one up all on his own. I hear you have a date for this ball too. I'm assuming that Sapphire was asking you that question as well." The little blonde now had a smile on her face. "Colin asked me as soon as the ball was announced. I think Ginny and Lyra were disappointed at that." "As long as you're happy, Luna, and your date behaves himself." Harry's voice had risen slightly. It was certainly loud enough for a now red-faced Colin to hear as he sat down at the table. This earned Harry a hug, followed by a kiss on the cheek. "You know he will, Harry, and thanks. I see what you mean about hugs and kisses. Hermione, your areas are way with the witches." "Oh, it's not just witches, Fleur. My mum's been hugging and kissing him since the first time they met." This drew a fair bit of laughter from the Potter scholars gathered to have lunch together, a ritual that had just grown into an everyday occurrence. They all knew Emma Granger, and the fact she considered Harry her son too. "Well, he can expect to be hugged by my Martha and sister too. I heard back from them, they want to come whenever they can. We finish up on the 19th, returning on the 3rd. Your family are welcome to stay in Kingersea for as much or as little of that as they want. The chalet is being fitted out as guest accommodation, and we're hoping to avoid needing wizarding tents in our training room." This saw Dennis and Ewan interrupting. "Those tents were great, Harry. Me and my mum loved them. Our dad wanted to buy one for going camping over the summer. We couldn't really take it onto a camping site though. 5 creevies getting out of something that size would be sure to cause questions." Natalie agreed with that too. "My dad said Professor McGonagall should take one of them when she tells Muggle-born they're witches. Or wizards. He thought his back was going to suffer that weekend, until he went inside. 3 furnished bedrooms, a bathroom and even a working kitchen, all in that little space. The McDonalds would certainly be happy staying in one of those tents again. This left Hermione shaking her head. We thought we were putting our guests at an imposition, asking them to stay in tents. It never occurred to us that they see so little magic. This would appeal to them. It's a bit like me, Hermione. I've only celebrated 3 Christmases. The first was with you and Harry and Crawley, the next at Grimmauld with Sirius, and last year with the Longbottoms. I don't really care too much where this year's is, just as long as we're all together. A tropical beach might make a nice change. No point in hinting, Padma. I've already given Remus and Tonks use of the island for their honeymoon. Harry then turned to all the Potter scholars. We haven't got our plans finalized for the holidays yet, but we hope to see all of you at Kingersea for at least part of the holidays. That led to a load of yeses, and all are walking about with a beaming smile on her face for the rest of the day. By dinner time, the rumor sweeping the castle was that Lavender Brown was going to the Yule Ball, on the arm of Ronald Weasley. Ginny confirmed this news in her own inimitable style. If that bitch cheats on Ron again, after him giving her another chance, I swear I'll scalp her. The little firebrand calmed down somewhat when Dean Thomas approached and asked her to the ball. Dates were being arranged up and down the hall. Victor found himself having to fend off a few pushy Botobedon students. I have already asked someone to the ball. They said yes. He then found one of the benefits of being in Hufflepuff as his new housemates rallied round to offer him protection. Even so, some of the witches were dying to know just who the lucky girl was. All Victor was saying on the matter was that a gentleman never tells. They would all see his date at the ball. Arthur was having a ball. The Muggle government had offered them anything they wanted for the chance to catch the Potter killers. Even military assistance. That was why Arthur and Bill found themselves in a special government electronics lab, one that had a clearance so secret the people they were working with could certainly be trusted with the knowledge magic exists. The 3 people they were currently working with were really skeptical, but their orders had come from the very top. When Bill disapparated right in front of them, all that skepticism vanished with him. They were now every bit as excited as Arthur. This was as new to them as all their gadgets and equipment were to the ministry official. That same ministry official was astonished as the large screen was suddenly zooming in on an aerial picture of Ottery St. Catchpole. The flashing dot, he was told, indicated Bill was walking alongside an area of the map that appeared not quite as sharp as the rest. After the previously agreed upon 5 minutes, Bill entered the burrow's wards, and the signal disappeared. That's roughly what we would have expected to happen. Wards disrupt signals for electronic equipment. There are a few charms some witches and wizards born to non-magical parents have come up with, specifically to allow television and radio signals through. The people we need these devices for, though, would need to be tracked to an area that will be deliberately masking any and all signals. We have our own way of placing tracking charms, those, however, will certainly be targeted too. While Arthur was now fairly knowledgeable on the Muggle world, the conversations he was listening to here were way above his head. After a while, Arthur really had to say something. Let me see if I've got the gist of this. It should be easier because only the transmitter and not the detection equipment will come into contact with shields and magic. Also that there might be 4 sources helps, and yes, I think they will be able to activate their transmitters just before the event. Good, that means we can have them cycling through multiple frequencies and methods. Something that is murder on power requirements. That they can switch them on, and we don't have to make them minute, will help with that problem too. A returning Bill had a set of ward stones from Gringotts. Both Weasleys marked an area of floor in a nearby cleared room before placing the stones on the floor and activating them, giving the technicians a defined warded area to work with. Arthur and Bill then left to report to their bosses on what was a very productive meeting. Their usual meeting with the Blacks that Saturday took a very unusual twist. All their parents and Amelia were present for a start. After all the greetings and sending for Paul Revay, it was time to get down to business. It was a rather somber Barchoke who started them off. We've hit a problem, a very big problem. When the Muggle government discovered the 4 people who might be facing the Potter killers were all under 16, well, they hit the roof. They are pulling all their cooperation and making threatening noises against the ministry for even contemplating such a thing. We really don't know what to do next. Their trackers were showing the best promise. There's certainly something Riddle won't deliberately shield against. The group assembled had gotten so used to treating their children as adults, their actual ages were sometimes forgotten. Dan at least could see how his government could reach their decision to support the use of what they see as children being used as soldiers, could easily bring down any Westminster government. It's something that's really hard to argue against, especially since none of us in this room are happy or even comfortable with the situation either. It was left to Harry to try and put things into perspective. With or without their help, Voldemort is going to make his play. Knowing this could be our best chance to end the war, I'm still going to take that chance. I am an adult in 2 of the 3 societies that affect our lives. The Muggle government are not going to be able to stop me doing this. What if we set up some kind of meeting on our terms though? If they tried to take us 4 into protective custody, or something silly like that, things could go bad so quickly. Hermione liked that idea, already knowing she would be facing Voldemort at Harry's side. Who are we dealing with? Could we invite them to Usse for the weekend? This drew a groan from Emma. What happened to the girl who got her knickers in a twist because Harry asked the Minister of Magic to his birthday party? Now that same girl wants to invite the Prime Minister of Britain to stay for the weekend. Harry was off his seat and hugging Emma. Mum, that's bloody brilliant. Let's invite the Minister and the Director too. The 3 heads of government can share their views on the matter. This also sparked something in Padma. Why don't we invite Borislaw as well? The Bulgarians certainly want Voldemort's head on a stick after what happened at the World Cup. If the British government refused to help us, Borislaw could approach the Bulgarian one for help. This had serious beaming. I've taught them well. I also remember Minister Murphy vowing to help. That means we have the Irish as an option too. Meeting this lot, talking with their parents, and then discovering that there are other governments willing to help should put enough pressure on this Prime Minister to see him cave. What about inviting Professor Snape too? Neville's words silenced everyone. All knew, though he wouldn't have mentioned this without a good reason. Who knows more about Death Eaters and what they're capable of than a former Death Eater? Mum and Dad can share some of their experiences, but they're my parents. We need someone impartial to give that kind of information. Why don't you just go the whole hog and invite the Queen too? This focused all eyes on Emma again. It was a joke, people. No, it was just a joke. Please don't take that serious. As Emma's voice slowly became a whine of protest, she was soon drowned out with the family's laughter at her self-induced predicament. The laughter had barely died before Padma kicked it off again. She was sitting with her godson on her lap, a godson who had apparently just filled his nappy. Wrinkling her nose, Padma's comic timing was superb. Emma, even Jamie has managed to show what he thought of that idea. It stinks. The laughter resumed, but Dobby soon had Jamie popped away and changed. It only took a moment before the now fresh baby was back in Padma's arms. It was a moment though that changed more than Jamie. Hermione was first to notice Harry staring into space, as if he'd just had an epiphany. This had her worried. Harry, you don't really think the Queen could help us, do you? Without breaking his focus, Harry issued an instruction. Call for Betsy. The little elf appeared the instant Harry mentioned her name, and well before Hermione had time to call her. Harry knelt beside Betsy, looking right into the elf's large eyes. Betsy, can you find Hermione? No matter where she is. Betsy always knows where Mistress is. And if she needs her, Betsy. Now was the million-galleon question. The entire extended family had gone silent. Realization of where Harry was going with this began to permeate the room. Betsy, could you take someone to help Hermione if a bad wizard stole her away? The little elf was soon clinging to Hermione. Someone is trying to steal Betsy's mistress? Who would do such a terrible thing? The Dark One is going to try and steal me, and Hermione will be by my side. Could you bring Father or Dan to wherever he takes us? Dobby popped into the room at hearing that US family. Dobby can find you too. Dobby can take Master Dan and his guns to wherever the evil one takes Dobby's family. 2 more elves popped in, one proudly wearing the Potter crest while the other was clearly from the castle. The Potter elves will be able to find their lord and lady and able to take help to them, if that is what Master wants. The Hogwarts elf was not about to be outdone. You are Hogwarts champion. The castle elves stand ready to help its champion anyway elves can. We can find our champion. Hogwarts champion is our family. It was Amelia who broke the silence that followed these revelations. The answer was right in front of us all this time. We ignored it because we ignore the elves until we want something. Hermione was trying to comfort and upset Betsy. He only thinks he's stealing us, Betsy. We know what he's up to, and with all your help we can beat him. Betsy will bring father as soon as she can. Evil one took Mistress Lily. He's not getting you. She was clinging to Hermione as if that would stop the entire incident happening. Dobby and Master Dan will be there also. Evil one will not harm Dobby's family. It was Alice who saw the possibilities. Getting an advanced squad there as quickly as possible would also allow us to put trackers on them. We could have 100 warriors and auras there within a minute. A smiling Harry thanked the elves before turning his attention to Barcho. Father, I think we should tell the Muggle government we respect their customs and ask that they respect ours. We four are considered adults in our own societies and are clearly doing this of our own free will. Harry's gaze shifted to Hermione, still trying to comfort and upset Betsy. No offense to your queen, Emma. With Hermione's life at stake, I'd far rather put my trust in someone who loves her as much as we do. We've come this far relying on our family. That same family can now take us all the way. Harry now had the bit between his teeth as he addressed the room. This bastard almost wiped out the Potters, Bones, Longbottoms, and had a damned good try at eradicating all the Muggle-borns too. My brother and my goddaughter would be killed without mercy or remorse. It's time to stop this, and that time is now. Even Dan and Emma could feel the power radiating off Harry as he declared his intentions. Hermione, of course, was now at his side, but Neville had moved to stand behind the couple, being joined by Padma cradling Jamie in her arms. It was a powerful scene. Neville's words then added to the visual effect. I remember Hermione once asking Harry why it was always him who had to do what he did. Harry replied that it was because only he could. Only the four of us can do this, and that's the way it has to be. Tonks wasn't buying that. She had an idea. Harry, Hermione and I have blood-bonded portkeys. Could that be used to get me in there too? My job is to guard his back, and I'm not happy about them leaving without me. This led to a question from Ramramau. If that can be done for Tonks, couldn't we add more linked portkeys to theirs? These questions snapped Barchoke out of the stupor he'd drifted into. Like everyone else, he'd been focused on the Muggle tracking systems as their best option for finding their children. From the feedback they were getting from Arthur and Bill, a weekend in Kingmorsea wasn't going to change any Muggle minds over this matter. They were horrified at the ages of the four who would face Voldemort, and there really was nothing to be done about that. Now his son had just come up with a tracking method that was practically foolproof, and something the Dark One wouldn't even think to guard against. He was sometimes in awe of the way the youngsters saw things their elders missed, simply because they had a different view of what was all around them. It was time to get back to business though. Rambo, this type of portkey normally only work in pairs. It took a lot of effort to get that number up to 3. Adding even one more would severely weaken what was already there. Weakened to the point it no longer worked. Tonks, that's a brilliant idea, but I don't know the answer. You can bet we'll be looking into it though. At the moment our best guess is this blood-bound portkey will take its victim to an area that's heavily warded. These wards will be keyed to the sample of blood they already have, and even the elves won't be able to get us past them. This had Harry worried, though not for himself. It took Voldemort and 24 of his Death Eaters at least a couple of minutes to pull the wards on Amelia's property down. That might be how long we'll need to fight before you can get through to us. A strong hand clamped on his shoulder at that. We can do this, Harry. Don't even think about leaving us behind. I'll set Padma on you. Her betrothed's argument found total agreement from the witch in question. It's time to see if all this exercise has been worth it. Hit and keep moving. They won't be expecting 4 of us. We can hopefully use that surprise to take one of them out. Then it will be 4 against 2. We might even have the job finished before Amelia gets those wards down. I will be there with every wand I can muster. No wards will last 2 minutes against that amount of firepower. Then you drop to the ground and we'll do the rest. Your job is not to be hit by any of the Death Eaters while we're ripping those wards down. You don't have to win the war on your own. Amelia was trying to smile as she said that. Inside, though, her heart was breaking at sending these 4 teenagers up against Voldemort. Those wards would be down in under a minute. She wouldn't accept even 1 second over that from her people. It was Alice who brought up a distasteful subject. Whatever we may think, no one here can deny that Albus Dumbledore is a powerful wizard. That power could help bring those wards down faster. As Amelia just mentioned, we will be in a situation where every single second will count for our children. That idea hung in the room like a bad smell. One that was a lot worse than Jamie's nappy. Though they could see her point, no one was quite sure what to make of Alice's suggestion. Amelia was the one who finally tackled the problem. Yes, Dumbledore is powerful, but can we really trust him in what would certainly be a critical situation? If I have to assign 3 auras to watch him, that's 3 less wands that could be attacking those wards. Frank then surprised everyone by speaking out. We could do it. Shoot the bastard if he tried anything. Oh, how Barchoke liked that idea. I could also have some warriors there to support Frank and Alice, with their blades poking into Dumbledore's ribs. Let Dumbledore think he can redeem himself by helping us bring down those wards, and then we can arrest him as soon as Voldemort is dealt with. A final manipulation of the wizard who considers himself the great puppet master. The family liked that idea. Augusta Tonks, Harry and Hermione, knowing they had until the end of January to refine any plans further. While all expected the 3rd task would be Voldemort's targeted event, they would be taking every precaution for the 2nd task too. It would be foolish not to do so. Recognizing they'd done all they could for the moment, they broke into smaller groups as the family caught up on just what had been happening since they last all got together. Tonks was discussing her idea with Barchoke, while Remus's arm slipped around his fiancée. Tonks leaned into him as she spoke. You know, I've got to try this, love. Even if there's a small chance of me getting in this fight with them, I've got to take it. Remus leaned in and tenderly kissed her worries away. That's what I get for asking Inara to marry me. I'll be outside those wards, pouring everything I have into bringing them down. They were joined by Sirius, who confirmed the Blacks would be doing the same. You better keep a place there for the Hobsons too, both are very fond of those 4. Lucas will rip Voldemort in half with his bare hands if he harms any of them. Since we have some idea of the ward structure they're working on and access to the blood they'll use to bind them, the nation's warders are working on a different way to make their wards fail. I'm with Amelia on this. There is no way our children will be in there with Voldemort for 2 minutes. The director has decreed this task is the nation's top priority, from now until we end this. He will be delighted to know we now have a reliable way to track them. The Granger females were watching their men, both Harry and Dan looking extremely comfortable, chatting to each other with a baby in their arms. I can't believe how big Jamie is getting. He seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. Emma, though, was concentrating on Dan, standing with Astrid cradled in his arms. I remember when your father held another little girl in his arms like that, and it doesn't seem so long ago, either. You're one to talk about leaps and bounds. Love, you've been growing and blooming ever since we took you to King's Cross that first time when you were 11. Now you're ready to go off and fight a war. Mum, Harry is my future, my life. I couldn't stand there and let him go off to fight without me. No matter how much you, Dad, or even Harry himself wants me to, it would destroy me. I need to be there. I'll be fighting at his side, doing my very best to ensure both of us return. I know you will, Hermione. I just hope your idea of sharing blood works. Her daughter's deep blush at that comment told its own story to her mother, but Hermione held her head high as Emma probed for more. I take it you have decided on other methods to ensure you're accepted by this portkey and any wards? Harry is going to be my husband, Mum. The date is already set. Completing our bond before the 3rd task ensures I'll be at his side for this fight. How could I not choose to do that? Emma's arm was now supportively around her daughter. I said you were growing up fast. I'm sorry that the circumstances make you feel you have no other choice in this matter, but you must know that your young man treasures you for the wonderful young witch that you are. This saw Hermione return her mother's hug. Thanks, Mum, for being so understanding. You were much easier to convince than Harry was. She had always been open with Hermione. They had a bond of trust where her daughter knew she could come to her about anything. Emma thought Hermione had luckily missed out on all the potential pitfalls that was teenage dating, but that wasn't strictly true. Her daughter simply had an entirely different set of pitfalls to navigate. Emma, though, managed to surprise herself. Here they were, talking about Hermione's first foray into actual sex. And her mother had an uncontrollable urge to laugh. Hermione's pout at having to convince Harry to take that final step just finished Emma off. She was holding on to her daughter and giggling with laughter. It's not funny. Her laughter had their two menfolk looking over to see what was going on. Emma whispering to Hermione, "Just as well they don't know what I'm laughing at," set Hermione off too. The more perplexed Dan and Harry were at this, the more Hermione and Emma laughed. Sapphire found herself working alongside Penny and Percy, with Bill supervising all of their training. The wizarding couple had both been raised in pureblood environments, while Sapphire of course had a goblin upbringing. Percy and Penny had been working using Henrika's book on goblins as their guide. Having Sapphire added to their group certainly increased their learning curve. For Sapphire, having a witch and wizard she could ask questions of was a great help. All three, though, were lacking on any muggle background. Bill was now able to help with that. He'd been seeing a lot of Jenny and had no intention of letting any cultural differences scupper their growing relationship. Barchoke had immediately given his approval for Jenny to be in Gringotts one day a week as a muggle consultant to their department. She refused all payment for this, citing she was already indebted to them for Ewins and her scholarships. Barchoke, though, ensured his assistant ambassador took Jenny for a nice lunch and then dinner after work, since he stipulated that at least one of these meals should be in the Muggle world, and the rest of the department were required to attend. He easily justified the expense involved as training. By wearing a hat to cover her ears, Sapphire was able to blend in enough so as not to draw any unwanted attention. The streets of Muggle London were full of the weird and wonderful, one of the reasons purebloods could get away with their outlandish attempts at Muggle dress. In London, where there was a new version of odd around every corner, it was rather hard to stand out. Sapphire was loving her apprenticeship, even more so since Barchoke decreed that time spent at King Gussie would be considered work. Just by hanging out with her friends and having fun, Sapphire would still be learning about their different cultures. That would mean Sapphire could still join her friends during their holidays in King Gussie, and of course she was looking forward to this ball. There were goblin teenagers who had once taunted Sapphire because she was friends with Harry when they were youngsters. Those same teenagers were now intensely jealous as Sapphire appeared fast-tracked for success. That was revenge worthy of a goblin. Even some of her own family were now looking at her in awe. Sapphire could hardly wait to see their faces when she was pictured on the arm of Victor Crumb. Fleur Delacour was another young lady whose outlook had changed since meeting a certain goblin. The Baudepin's champion couldn't remember a time when she had been happier. Not only was she making friends at Hogwarts, she would be spending the Christmas holidays with those friends and her family. After their training one morning, while Harry and Neville were showing Victor the basic positions for wielding a sword, she heard from Hermione and Padma why King Gussie was so important to them. "It's not the biggest house Harry owns, but it's the one that feels most like home to us. Last summer it felt as if half the country visited our home over the weekend of the fair. We have goblin families living and working in Kingassy now too. Our brother was christened there and the four of us are getting married in Kingassy the summer after next. Our family and friends know they're welcome any time, and tend to drop by more often than not. Harry appears happiest when the house is bursting at the seams, which again it is more often than not. And poor Hermione never seems to get any alone time with Harry because of it." Padma was chuckling as she teased her best friend. "Don't let her fool you, Fleur. Hermione is very much the lady of the manor and loves the company as much as Harry." The first birthday party she threw had the Minister of Magic and the Director of the Nation in attendance, as well as a few hundred other guests she invited. "Hey, Harry invited both of them. He didn't even tell me about it till the night before." This drew a loud "what" from Fleur, causing the three guys to look over. She lowered her voice before asking the question she really wanted. Answered, "How did you cope with that?" "Oh, I was angry. But it's hard to stay angry at Harry for long. He was actually right not to be worried about it. And I learned a valuable lesson. Kingassy is our home. Crow's Nest is the way it is, and we are the way we are. Other people might find it strange, even unusual. It's our home though, and we wouldn't change anything. Well, perhaps a few more rooms for all the guests your mate keeps inviting. Padma, it could be the size of Buckingham Palace, and Harry would still somehow manage to fill it. Receiving a pair of blank looks forced Hermione to explain. Buckingham Palace is the official London residence of the Queen. I seem to remember it has over 250 bedrooms, though a lot of them are set aside for servants. Next time we're in London, I'll take you to see it. It's just along the Mall from Trafalgar Square. This at least gave Padma some sort of reference, having visited the square before. It also led to another question. Will we be visiting London to do any shopping before Christmas? Oh, I dare say we could convince these two to take us. Padma then had another idea. What about a day in Harrods? We could invite everyone. I'd love to see Pansy's face when she walks in those doors. Hey Patil, I still remember your first trip into Muggle London. You were pretty starry-eyed yourself. I can't believe you remember that. You were far too busy holding Harry's hand and staring into those green eyes you love so much. Fleur was now getting used to these two and wanted to get her question in before this escalated. Go back to where you mentioned a shopping trip. This had both girls laughing. Don't worry, Fleur, you'll love it. Do you think you can swing it past the parents, Hermione? I've just had a wonderful idea exactly how we can do that. Involve the Potter scholars. The Creevies, McDonald's and Jenny Abercrombie would love to show their children's magical friends some of their world. Little Maggie would certainly love that idea. Maggie Creevy is Colin's young sister. She's 9 and besotted with Harry. Now, Padma. We don't want to start mentioning Creevy crushes, do we? That Padma actually looked embarrassed meant it was Hermione's turn to laugh and explain why to Fleur. Colin actually had quite the crush on Padma here. She broke his heart by becoming betrothed to Neville. Isn't Colin Luna's boyfriend? Fleur's question silenced both girls. He's just asked her to the ball, don't even joke about that. Hermione was nodding her agreement. There isn't a word in the goblin language for protective. They don't need one. Goblin females are prohibited from working on the main bank floor. That's because any customer giving a female teller abuse would quickly find themselves acquainted with goblin steel. Harry likened his centurion position to that of a knight of old. Honor, chivalry and courage are all things he lives his life by. Now add in that he certainly considers Luna part of our family, and you can see there is a recipe there for a disaster. Goblins don't date as we would consider it. They just hang out with friends until they find their mate. That's almost exactly what happened between Neville and me, so Harry was fine with it. There is also the fact he trusts my Neville with Hermione's life. Harry's trying to learn, but inside he'll always be a goblin. First boy who hurts one of the girls is going to find Harry waiting on them. If either of those girls is Luna or Sapphire, we're going to have to try and stop him committing a murder. He likes Colin though. Harry might actually approve of that. Eventually, Hermione saw Fleur staring at her and tried to justify what she'd just said. Harry is a wonderful person, like the rest of us though. He has his faults, and then there's the cultural differences. In his culture that way of acting is not only right, it's positively expected. She found herself being interrupted by the Vila. Hermione, I think it is wonderful. I am trying to convince my parents Hogwarts might be a better school for Gabrielle Babaton. Has been a lonely place for me. Harry's influence certainly makes the castle safer for a young Vila. Hermione was also thinking a Potter scholarship could go a very long way to easing Gabrielle's journey through Hogwarts. That was something though she would bring up with Harry in private. Their earlier talk of the Christmas holidays had Padma far too excited to let that conversation drop. This is far too serious. Let's go and tell our other halves about Hermione's wonderful shopping idea. My idea? It was you who suggested it. I just improved on that suggestion. Fleur was now looking forward to the holidays even more and knew Gabrielle would love it too. What Fleur didn't know was that both these girls understood the final conflict would soon be upon them. Hermione and Padma had more steam to let off than usual. They also certainly intended to live life to the full until then. Luna well remembered this lesson. She'd experienced it firsthand. Last year Harry had asked her and Colin to put on a display of what they'd learned to the newest marauders. The four assistants were helping Susan and Blaze offer comfort to the latest marauders, while Hannah and Terry set out a dueling area. The introduction of Natalie and Pauline certainly cheered you and Dennis and Orla up. Watching the two second years go at each other meant the pain of those stinging curses would soon be forgotten. Here's what was achievable if they just worked hard. There were loud cheers for the two girls after Susan called time on their fight, meaning it was a happy bunch of marauders who then left the room at the end of the meeting. It took a few moments before Luna noticed Colin appeared to deliberately delay their departure, until it was just the two of them left. This made her slightly nervous and more than a little excited. "Luna, you know I like you, and I'm really looking forward to us going to the ball together. Thing is, there is something I've been meaning to ask you. Would you like to go to that ball with me? As my girlfriend?" She didn't really trust her voice at that moment, so Luna just nodded. A much relieved Colin then asked a follow-on question. "Would it be okay if I kissed my girlfriend?" Again she could only nod, though considerably quicker this time. Colin leant in, and a gentle kiss later, both had a wide smile on their faces. Taking her hand, Colin led his new girlfriend out of the room to escort Luna back to Ravenclaw. "Now all I've got to do is tell Harry." "Colin, will you deliberately hurt me?" "What? Never. You know that, Luna." "I know, so leave Harry to me. I'll have a chat with him." They walked hand in hand to the Ravenclaw dorm, where another gentle kiss was exchanged as the new couple said goodnight. Luna practically bounced into the Ravenclaw common room, drawing attention from all who were there. She made straight for Harry. He was of course sitting beside Hermione. Deciding to take the bull by the horns, Luna skipped right over and plonked herself down on Harry's lap. Noticing Hermione biting her lip to stop laughing helped Luna say what she needed to. "Harry, after tonight's meeting, Colin asked me to be his girlfriend. It's something I'm very happy about, and we both know he'll never deliberately hurt me. We've been friends so long that if this doesn't work out, we could still be friends afterwards. Are you going to be okay with that? Are we still okay?" At that, Harry's arms snaked around Luna. He pulled her closer and kissed her forehead. "As long as you're happy, that's the main thing for me, Luna." Luna's arms were around him at that, and squeezed tightly. "You're the best brother in the whole world," was whispered in his ear. Luna kissed his cheek, and then shot off to tell the rest of her friends the good news. There was also a letter she needed to write to Sapphire. As he watched her go, Harry found himself the recipient of another kiss. "You handled that well, love." Luna's happiness is the important thing here, and it's easy to see she's happy. "I want her to know I'll always be there if she ever needs me, but not intrude to the point where it stops her leading the life she wants to lead. Does that make sense, or do I sound like some nutter?" He found himself being answered by another kiss. "That's perfect, Harry. I'm anything but perfect, Hermione. If that was anyone else but Colin, my reaction might have been different. If I thought some wizard was trying to take advantage of her." Hermione's kiss this time was more to take Harry's mind away from the direction it had been wandering. "Just by you being you, the wrong type of wizard wouldn't go anywhere near Luna or any of our close friends. It seems the hat was right to put Colin into Gryffindor." This drew a smile from Harry, as did watching a happy Luna with her friends. "This is why we train, Hermione. Why we're ready to fight. Look how happy Luna is. And not one person has mentioned the fact she's a pureblood yet. Colin is a muggle born. It doesn't matter to us. And it shouldn't matter to anyone else. This is worth fighting for." Harry found himself being kissed again as Hermione showed she agreed with that. Draco and Pansy were sitting in the Slytherin common room, like Harry and Hermione, just enjoying some alone time together. "Are you looking forward to going home for the holidays?" This saw Draco's brows furrowing. "I don't know how Harry puts up with it. I certainly miss the peace and quiet since our home is full, all the time. There are so many people staying at the manor now, our mothers are forced to share a room." The bright blush this induced in Pansy told Draco he was missing something here. He waited on his betrothed telling him just what that something was. "I don't think the people taking refuge in Malfoy Manor have anything to do with our mothers sharing a bedroom. What else would it be?" "Oh!" With his eyes almost popping out of his head, Draco looked to his betrothed for confirmation. The slight nod of Pansy's head then had Draco spinning. A very anxious Pansy tried to wait on Draco, giving some indication of his thoughts on this. Pure blood society, especially pure blood wizards, really frowned on this type of relationship. That it was both their mothers just added further levels of complexity to the problem. The tension as she waited on Draco saying anything at all was getting to her, so Pansy began to babble. I don't know what things were like in your home. With the Parkinsons, my father's word was law. My mother's opinion on anything was neither asked for nor would be listened to. She was the lady of the house, but there was no power behind the position. They may have loved each other when they were younger, but that love was long gone by the time I came along. I can't even remember seeing my parents kiss. Draco ended her panic with a kiss of his own, before reassuring his betrothed. We are not our parents, you will be the Lady Malfoy. Someone who will be at my side for the rest of our lives. My father curtailed everything my mother could do, including her access to the Malfoy vaults. She was limited to what she could withdraw, and then the ministry took that when she tried to use it to get my father out of the ministry cells. The more he thought about the situation, the more Draco's mind was made up. My father would have left us in Hogwarts, knowing we were in great danger from the Horcrux he sent here. It was my mother who drew her wand before rushing to the castle to get me home. If being together makes our mothers happy, then I don't see it being anyone's business but their own. My mother certainly deserves some happiness in her life. It sounds like your mother is the same. Pansy was so proud of Draco, she almost jumped on him at that point. There was no further talking for a while. Padma and Neville were also talking about the relationships of others. You must have noticed the change in Henanai. She seems much more self-assured now. The only thing I can think of to do that was if she and Harry had decided to complete their bond. I'm certain they haven't yet. I'm sure I would know. It was with a fair degree of dryness in his mouth that Neville asked Padma what she thought about that. Trying to hide her blush, Padma answered, as honestly as she could. If I was in Hermione's position, it's something I would definitely do. You are mine and no Dark Lord is going to take you from me. Completing their bond means any portkey or wards will accept Hermione too. Struggling to get the words out, Neville finally managed to say what he wanted to. Where does that leave us? Padma snuggled into him, hiding her face so Neville couldn't see how much she was blushing. I think it's something we should consider too. When Neville tensed up in her arms, a now emotional Padma gave her reason behind that last remark. Down in the Chamber of Secrets, all of us carried an amazing amount of luck. That luck has to run out sometime, love, and I have a bad feeling about this. We can't let them face this alone. But the chances of all of us getting through this in one piece are not great. I want you to know what's waiting for you after this battle. If it makes you fight just that little bit harder, then it will be worth it. I love you, Neville Longbottom. There is no plan B. I am yours and you are mine. That's the way it's got to be. I need you right where you are now, and you need to be there for me. Neville lifted her face to his, gently wiped away the tears that were forming in the corners of her beautiful eyes, before kissing Padma with all the tenderness he possessed. You're right, there's no way we could let Harry and Hermione face this without us. I can also assure my beautiful mate, I will be hitting them with everything I have. You don't need to do this, Padma. I'm more than willing to wait until you're ready. Basking in the love her mate was showing her, Padma only had one answer to that. Neville, I think I'm ready now. I know you're a Ravenclaw, and this is a quiet table, but really, here in the library. This put a smile on Padma's face. Mr. Longbottom, you know fine well I didn't mean right this very minute. You could get me barred from the library if we got caught. This started both of them chuckling. Quietly, of course. If you want to take that step, love, then I will certainly go along with you. I think it has to be a decision taken for the right reasons, though. Neville facing up to a Dark Lord and his minions seems like a bloody good reason to me. What's so funny? Oh, just the thought of Lestrange being described as a minion. Only you, Padma. Only you. Another kiss followed before they decided to leave the library. There would be no more studying done today, and they needed somewhere a little more private to continue this discussion. After poring over the books Dung had managed to acquire, Dumbledore was coming to the same conclusions as the nation. He was also faced with the same problem, how to track the boy once he had left. Albus had an advantage though, because Dolores was surely going to be tasked with planting this portkey. She would then certainly bring it to him for his assistance with this matter. That would give Albus some time to try and decipher the coordinates the portkey was set to deliver the boy to. There were spells for deciphering where a portkey had gone. They were extremely complex to cast, required a load of magical power, and needed to be cast directly after the portkey had activated. In the confusion that would follow Harry being abducted, he could easily make a show of casting this spell. Albus would then lead the rescue party to the location he'd already predetermined. The mistake Tom was making with these wards was an obvious one. Tying them to a person's blood certainly increased the power of those wards right up until that person died. When Tom completed the prophecy, those wards would come crashing down, and Albus would be on him. The remaining rescuers could bear witness that they had been helpless to save the boy. Yet Albus Dumbledore avenged Harry by banishing his second Dark Lord. That should see his waning star shoot straight back to its former stellar orbit.